Hello, everybody. Welcome to Irongeek cast number 44, labeled Due Process. We'll start up in a moment after I hear my loop back so I know that everything is functioning. How's everybody doing this evening?
Penis.
All right. I'm going to say left to right, because at least my left to right, because I don't think it appears the same for everybody else on Hangouts. We currently have on Owie, Illustrious Nightshade, Jack, Marlene, and, of course, myself. Probably Charles will be on here in a bit.
What's up?
Hey, James.
Hey, James.
Hello, James.
What's going on, guys?
Wait, is it playing? Oh, I got turned down. All right.
I'll tell you exactly what's up. What's up is my blood pressure because of net neutrality.
We'll get to that.
Oh, I'm with you. I'm with you.
All right. First thing I'm going to bring up, I have only one con left for this year. I'm going to do B-Sides Philly. As I recall, that was on the 8th, if I'm not mistaken. And I have a nightmare set of flights to do other stuff just before that. So, yeah. How's everybody else doing? Looking forward to a happy Thanksgiving?
You know, it's fun when you've been without a fucking oven for over a month now because your mom accidentally fucked the oven up.
Oh no, you poor thing.
What'd you do to the oven?
Apparently, we got some sort of chemical contamination or some shit.
What was she cooking in it?
Fuck if I know. Apparently, it involved poison ivy or some shit.
Wait. Back. Why the fuck would you put poison ivy in an oven?
Apparently, something got poison ivy in it, and then it got thrown in the oven instinctively, and then the oven got poison ivy. Woohoo!
Poison ivy's oregano, man.
That's a sign that you probably need to watch more Food Network or something, because if you think something looks like it's edible and it's actually poison ivy, that could be bad.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't a thing that was actually poison ivy. It was something came into contact with poison ivy.
Oh
Why
wow.
would you throw it in the oven?
Because she panicked.
I mean, the only time I've ever heard of someone panicking
You just rush it off.
oven was Hitler. So you know that's, and that didn't work out very well for anybody.
Unfortunately, sense is not a factor in this equation.
What's not a factor?
Common sense.
Okay. Well, let's get started with the subject matter we have, and I'm going to step away in 2 minutes anyway. So let's discuss what we have in the show notes. The first thing, and I want suggestions for this. I thought about doing we need content. Because, you know, quite frankly, I'm the only one that edits the show notes sometimes. We got a few things LP added. Charles added some stuff. We used to have a Forbush who would come in and add stuff. But I thought about doing a weekly segment on Fringe Group of the Week. And by Fringe Group, I mean anything from, like, Proud Boys, Kekistanis, Antifa, some BLM factions, because I can't hardly consider that a group exactly. It's kind of scattered. Then again, neither is Antifa or, I don't know, some poverty law center, any kind of fringe group that y'all can think of. What do y'all think of that idea?
I mean, it could be interesting. There's a hell of a difference between all the different groups, so it certainly could be an interesting conversation.
People lump them all together. Like, the Proud Boys get let into various nationalist groups or racist groups, but they're all nationalists. They're not racist, because there's, like, black members, and they seem to, like, hold, well, at least one of them, one of the big guys in it, seems to hold Ben Shapiro in high esteem, and Ben is very, very Jewish. So they're certainly not neo-Nazis, but they're all weird. Like, one of the rites of passages to that, I think the first or second level is you have to recite 5 breakfast cereals while the people around you beat you or punch you. It's weird shit. And they have all these, like, weird rules about sex and such. Like, you cannot ejaculate unless you're within a yard of a woman, unless you're gay. The rule does not apply to you if you're gay, and they actually specifically put that in there.
Well, then the odds are you're probably not going to be doing it in front of a woman if you're gay.
Yeah, so that's why they took that rule out. It's some weird group Gavin McInnes founded. And Gavin McInnes is he's kind of an odd duck. He kind of invented.
Oh, that's the one. I was about to ask, like, which one is Proud Boys again? Because I knew, the name sounded familiar, but I'm not exactly sure who's involved. That's Gavin McInnes' group. What is their kind of like? What is their claim to fame? Are they men's rights activists or
They're all Western
populist or whatever? What's their claim?
Well, that's one of the things I have to cover in the episode eventually. That they are Western chauvinists. Not chauvinists in the case of sex chauvinism, but chauvinists in the classical term as overly patriotic is what chauvinism originally meant.
They believe Western culture is the best.
Yes, they believe Western culture is the best. They don't believe women should stop working, but they do believe in venerating of the housewife, and they have a few other credos that they have.
Okay, gotcha. So that's, I guess that, like, who's that, proud wife or something like that, that would probably fall into that category. It's like they kind of like the idea of the traditional gender roles, I guess.
Yeah, but the proud wife lady, she doesn't seem to have a racial element to her because she wants to have white kids. Gavin McInnes has a bunch of mixed race kids because he married a woman who's First Nations. And Kyle Chapman, who's another guy involved in Proud Boys, he has a wife that's Asian of some variety. So they certainly don't. They certainly aren't the group that has any problem with different races mixing. But they are, like I said, Western chauvinists who think the West is the best, and they're all a little bit nationalistic. So it'd be interesting to cover. But they get lumped in with a bunch of other groups,
Weren't they part of the group that went to Charlottesville though?
Might have been some there, but I think someone were told not to show up because they didn't.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I do remember, I recall something about it because that's a group that I honestly don't follow. So, but I do remember hearing something about their involvement with Charlottesville or whether they were told not to go or to go. That part I didn't know.
I'll have to look it up. I haven't seen anything about Kyle Chapman being there. He's the one. Well, they started a subgroup called Alt Night. Before the whole alt-right thing became completely associated with neo-Nazis, how do you put it this way? About a year and a half ago, alt-right was an overwhelming, overarching umbrella for a bunch of right-leaning groups of people who just didn't think the establishment Republicans were particularly useful. Now, slowly but surely, after it comes out that, and I haven't seen anything to refute this, that Richard Spencer, who is a racist, white nationalist, how you want to put it, he coined the term supposedly. And because that whole, at some right-wing event, he started doing the, they call it the Roman salute, but basically the Heil Hitler salute.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of...
The Bellamy salute.
The what?
It's also known as the Bellamy salute from American socialism or something like that back in the 20s or 30s.
Oh, shit.
It's also how we used to salute the flag.
Pretty much all the people who, like Sinovich and Sovereign, I think, and like Milo people, they kind of moved the hell away from that. I mean, Milo would never actually call himself alt-right. I think some of the other people may have before the term. Now there's like some term people use alt-right, which has some of the same things as alt-right as far as nationalism is concerned, but they don't give a shit about race.
Yeah, I think
the United States used to salute like that for everything.
Sorry, go ahead.
The United States used to salute like that for everything. That was how we saluted the flag, the Bellamy salute. We saluted the flag. That's like it was a military salute. Everything. It wasn't until Nazi Germany that we changed that because we didn't want to look like they did. You know what I mean?
But that'd be one group I'd cover. Cover some Antifa stuff. Cover anybody who's I'd probably even cover furries and otherkin. But let's get on with the topic for this week. There was a gentleman by the name, gentleman may not be the right term, depends on whether the accusations are true, named Morgan Marquise Bory. And according to reports, he's being accused of rape. Apparently, there were some chat logs around where he admitted to it. Does anybody else know more about this subject?
Oh, yes, I know more.
Give me what the accusations are against the guy.
Huh?
Tell me the accusations against the guy.
Allegedly, he sexually assaulted multiple women over the course of many years. Allegedly drunkenly. There are chat logs, and one of my contacts who I trust was involved in getting the people communicating with the right people who were assaulted. So, and the guy in question who I trust knew this guy for 20 years. And this was someone who was in the goth scene with him 20 years ago and all that shit. And according to my contact, he's guilty as fuck.
Yeah, it says in the article here, a woman that The Verge gave the student named Lila provided The Verge with both a chat log. Oh, by the way, when you're not speaking, Howie, can you go ahead and mute yourself? You have some background noise.
How about now?
It's gone.
Yeah, that's because I just put on my headset.
Oh, yeah, thank you very much. That makes it a lot better. A woman that Right, the woman that The Verge gave the pseudonym Lila provided The Verge with both a chat log and a PG signed encrypted email from Morgan McQuest-Boré. In the email, he apologizes at great length for a terrible but unspecified wrong. And in the chat log, he explicitly confessed to raping and beating her in the hotel room in Toronto, and also confessed to raping multiple women in New Zealand and Australia. Not that I want the guy to get off or anything, but I'm not. Why did he sign that fucking thing? I know he's like one of these privacy guys who probably signs all of his emails just because it's the thing to do. But that makes it, then the email hasn't been released and the logs haven't been made public to my knowledge. But if the signed email comes out, it does make him look fucking guilty as hell.
Well, my first question would be is like, so when exactly did this happen?
I'm not sure it specifies.
Would that still be, I mean, is he admitting to something that still falls in the statute of limitations? I mean, could they legally go after him? Or is that part of why he's admitting some of those things is because he knows that the statute has passed?
Well, apparently he's always been...
Yeah,
go ahead.
I don't know intentions on, rapists, but...
You might want to disconnect and reconnect, James. You're gone.
James, you're gone.
Got a bad connection.
Yeah. Apparently, he's been disassociated from Bow Out. The sexual assault accusations first became public in October with Chloe Ann King, an Auckland-based writer, tweeted that Marquise Boré had been removed from the page of The Intercept, although his profile page still remains. I saw her get in a fight with. Are you familiar with a woman by the name of Violet Blue?
Yes,
that sounds familiar.
Yeah, she spoke it.
A journalist. A lot of times she covers sex issues. She's also covered things like, well, she's the one who got no platform at B-Sides in San Francisco many years ago because someone from the ADA Initiative thought that her talk may be triggering to people because she talks about ways of how to handle drugs and avoiding sexual assault and such. But anyway, she was asking about at the logs public, and then the same Chloe Ann King lady started saying shit about Violet Blue, who about supporting this guy in question. Although I don't know if she actually supported him, she's just trying to find more information. She's doing what a reporter does and following up on shit. But she was accused of defending him just for asking for more information, which is BS. So
I mean that concerns me because I think any reasonable person would ask questions like, why has this not been made public? Why has this not been reported? If there is in fact something that occurred, why was it not reported to law enforcement? When did this take place? Why are you not bringing this forward right now? If you have the evidence of an actual rape that occurred, and I mean if it is in fact true that a rape happened and the guy admitted to it, why are you not taking this to law enforcement?
Well, I'm thinking that logs will eventually come out, and the email will hopefully eventually come out. But it's come out signed. I guess there's no way she can modify it without, because I'm in the signing process. The email address too is that part of the signing process? I don't remember.
The
receiver's public PGP key is encrypted with the sender's private key.
So I don't know.
And that sets up the non-repudiation.
I'm assuming she doesn't want to be known. Though bringing it to the police should have been the first thing. But apparently he's been disassociated from a few things. The same month that Delbert was made aware of the accusations against Marcus Barrera, the New Zealander also canceled his appearances at O'Reilly Security Conference in New York and at MozFest in London. And let's see. Given the context of your question, I also want you to know that O'Reilly has a code of conduct for events, and we take this seriously. I think it's been divided from a few places, and show them the door. Let me see. The claim against Marcus Bray. What the hell is that? Okay. Come over a year after the similar accusation service surrounding Jacob Applebaum of the Tor Project, who also served as on the same board of the Freedom of the Press Foundation.
Yeah, frankly, to be blunt about it, and I'm going to be clear about this, the freedom community, in air quotes, will disassociate from people just on suspicion alone.
Oh, yeah, it looks like it said we took them seriously, Mr. Marcus Burrier is no longer affiliated with EFF, and I think either he dropped out or left a different organization, which I'm trying to find the name of. Citizen Labs.
Yeah, Citizen Labs is a Canadian outfit that specializes in hunting state-sponsored malware.
Apparently he resigned from Citizen Labs, and he hasn't tweeted anything in a while. Now, I don't know the guy personally. I know other people apparently did know him, but are kind of shocked by allegations. But I tend on this one to definitely believe that he is guilty of the accusations because of a couple of tweets that he sent. Let me show you a couple of tweets. I'm assuming. I'm trying to get my screen correct.
It's not just the tweets. His behavior does match up.
Well, you know that, but I don't personally know that. I only go over the research.
Fair enough.
But based on a couple of tweets here, for all the manarchists and mansplainers, look, kitten, I am too a feminist. Fox Feminism and Men, and she links up with somebody's article, and this K.C person who's this was the K.C, by the way, was the nut job who tried to do the whole red card, green card, yellow card thing at DEF CON, which obviously
DEF CON 20, and it turned into Pokemon. Gotta catch them all.
Yes, that was. I had a comment. Oh, she faked. Oh, besides Las Vegas, when they kicked me off the team, also, and I pointed that out later on. She seems like she has a black flag in her profile. If that tells you anything. Anyway, he hangs out with a bunch of nutters, and he claims to be a male feminist. In at least 2 tweets, he similar to that. I archived each one just in case he removes them. Let's see. Kitty Stryker, radical feminist is an accusation. I thought it was a compliment. So the guy's clearly a male feminist, so he's guilty. So that's all I know about that, unless anybody else knows more information about him. Anybody else know any more information about this guy?
No, I mean, when I saw the name, it's like, I think I have seen the name in the past, but I don't really know anything else. I'm just more concerned about the fact that apparently it seems like people had known about it for some time, and that for lack of a better word, that he's still kind of like roaming the streets. I mean, if he in fact admitted to raping multiple women, he's a serial rapist. So it's I'm kind of concerned by the fact that there's multiple people that are aware of these accusations and they haven't done anything about it.
So sometimes those accusations are out there that the people who know about the accusations don't have hard proof and they don't know what to say. For instance, the Captain Crunch guy. You heard about Captain Crunch?
Yeah.
I've been told that rumor for years. But of course, I was by that time. I think I was outside of his age demographic, in my early 30s. I think when I first heard that rumor, but I didn't have any proof. I know the guy had a little bit of a skeevy vibe, but I didn't know. But then other people have come forward and said it's happened to him. And while a bunch of witnesses is not always absolute proof, when enough people pile on, I have to say there's something to it. And apparently, DEF CON goons used to have a general instruction to kind of keep him separate from young men. Let's say young men. I don't know how boyish they were. The things I've heard, it seems that it was post puberty, but under 30 was his thing. But the rumors have been years, no one did anything about it because I think a lot of people who knew the rumors didn't actually know it themselves. They wouldn't firsthand experience it.
Oh, okay. So they just they heard rumors and didn't really know any further details either.
It's kind of the problem. What do you do when it's just hearsay?
Yeah, no, I mean, trust me, I'm saying this is like, I'm very sympathetic to it. That is the hard thing that we're all having to deal with now with all these allegations coming out. It's like, you hear stuff, at what point do you act, at what point do you not act? If it is just hearsay, you have never observed anything, it's never happened to you, what do you do?
So I can tell you this right now, there are a couple motherfuckers that I personally wouldn't mind stringing up from a yard arm, but I don't have enough concrete proof to do so. I mean, like, this is a situation where even in this chat, there are people who have been attacked who don't have enough concrete proof to string motherfuckers up.
Yeah.
So just because there's no proof doesn't mean, that there's nothing behind it. You know what I mean?
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, I'm very much, I agree with all of you in the sense that if there's smoke, there's fire. I mean, excuse me. When the rumors started to fly, there's obviously, it started with something. Excuse me.
Yeah, but
And
go ahead.
the thing to remember in this field is a lot of people in this field have no tolerance for bullshit.
Oh, but Marlene is from a different field. She's a developer, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, yeah, I'm not in infosec specifically, so for me it's like that's kind of it's slightly outside of the community that I'm usually in. But I mean, trust me, and as far as in development itself, there's been plenty of and also I'm in IoT and wearables and stuff like that, and I mean, there's plenty of rumors and accusations and stuff that you hear about people in the software development community as well. So it's not any different really.
Yeah,
I'm talking more tech in general instead of infosec, but I'm saying like in tech in general, we're aspy enough to the point at which we really don't have enough tolerance for bullshit to be waving our dicks around without reason.
In general, I've seen some shit that Marlene's posted about bullshit that happens in the dev world. I've seen some stuff that Adam's posted that's bullshit in the tech world in general. I think infosec has less bullshit in general than the other parts of tech, but I don't think tech in general is low on bullshit.
I'd like to point out that infosec is small.
True. And we got a lot of former military who don't take bullshit.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that does come into play. It's like, I think overall there's some parts of tech that have less of this. I mean, I'll be honest, it's like I've heard less issues coming out of groups like that specialize in hardware, for example. It's just I don't hear a lot of these accusations. I tend to hear more accusations about stuff happening in certain parts of tech, but not necessarily all. It's not across tech as a whole.
Yeah.
And so this guy, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know nothing's been charged as legal charges. And the signed email would be pretty damn good evidence, I would imagine. But imagine in the process of signing it, the person who is accusing him doesn't want to be outed. And I got to stop my screencast for a bit because someone's messaging me. I don't know what he's messaging me about.
Yeah, so funny fact about signing and shit. There was actually one point where I pissed off Tor Project. I sent a PGP encrypted email trying to explain the situation while trying to hint something went wrong, while also trying to hint, look, there's a legal clusterfuck involved. So Tor Project doesn't like me right now.
I don't think EFF probably likes me because I got up on stage during the beard con. It's a DEF con. I was a little drunk. And I said something about I'm going to shave my beard at DerbyCon for Hackers for Charity, and someone suggested EFF, and I said, no, fuck EFF. They didn't help me when I needed help, and they didn't help Encyclopedia Dramatica, so they can screw off. And I said that there were some EFF people on the stage as judges. And even to say, even though my beard is pretty epic, I did not win the contest. There's recordings of me, because they said I said more. I was told that I said more than that, but that's all I can recall saying.
That's pretty bad.
They're but biased motherfuckers.
So, someone who had some questionable ethics and morals and some questionable methods once did tell me something that was absolutely true. The freedom fire types and the social justice types act like cults and cliques. And if you don't mesh with them in a way which is essentially constantly eating their shit and constantly kissing their asses, they'll outcast you. They act like a fucking cult is what they do. And I have to say that person was right. From what I've experienced, they act like fucking cults.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of cult behavior. That's one thing that I can definitely say. What I've seen in the last year is it really is. It's like it becomes a religion, and they will go after anybody that questions it or was a former member of that religion and wants to leave and stuff like that. It's like I've seen that too.
Yeah, I've remember seeing. They came up to Lacey Green because after she started dating Chris Ray Gunn, she started being a little bit less of an SJW type, and she started saying things, and man, the SJWs tore into Lacey.
Yeah. I mean, and look at even how they're going after somebody like Blair White, because she isn't saying the same stuff that, kind of transgenders on the left is saying. Because she's a transgender on the right, they don't like what she has to say, so they go after her.
Yes, because it doesn't fit their narrative.
Exactly. And, I've seen so much of that.
I'm gonna repost the show notes. My buddy Lee just joined. The topic he was talking to me about, I haven't even read up on, but he can feel free to talk about it. Oh, he left the group. Oh, that's James that left the group. Oh man, what do you wear? Are you wearing anything?
I'm in Cabo.
Oh man, I'm jealous.
Shit. Well, right now we're talking about the Morgan Marquise Boree, and how there was some allegations of sexual assault and rape against him, and apparently a signed email, and there's apparently some chat logs. And I was just pointing out the fact that he's a self-admitted male feminist, so I'm going to automatically assume he's guilty. Because that's what I do. But I think the only person that has any kind of secondhand knowledge of the guy is Owie. I never, to my knowledge, I never met the man, but apparently a bunch of other people I know him. I was surprised by it, but Owie knows people apparently who confirm to him at least that's true. But I can't totally cast it.
I still just have one question, Adrian, and like, he specifically admitted to rape, or when people say sexual assault, I mean, it can mean a lot of different things. Did he specifically acknowledge that? Did he call it rape?
Let me look to see what he said. Apparently, the paragraph I'm reading: a woman that The Verge gave the pseudonym Lila provided The Verge with both a chat log and a PGP signed and encrypted email from Morgan Marquise Boree. I really should know how to pronounce that properly. In the email, he apologizes at great length for the terrible but unspecified wrong. And in the chat log, it was a chat log, he explicitly confesses to raping and beating her in the hotel room in Toronto, and also confesses to raping multiple women in New Zealand and Australia.
Okay, so at that point, it's considered rape. Wow, yeah. I mean,
so I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess a lot of it is then dependent on like exactly how was that described. I'm not, trust me, I'm definitely not denying it, but I'm just curious to know is like, when you're admitting, what are they using to just, what are they calling sexual assault? What are they calling rape? Was the person in question, was the person passed out, or did he, rape somebody against their will? What exactly happened?
If the report is correct, which, he's saying it himself, he considered it rape.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it sounds like from the description.
So in that case, I would go with that, but it's not. I'm about to just want to be some more people coming out. Because there's him and Captain Crunch currently from the InfoSec world. Tech in general. Well, I see people go after someone. There was some whiner online. I know. What was her name? Well, she was going after Linus, not because of any kind of sexual thing, but just because Linus is kind of an asshole. And like, that's not really a reason to kick someone off his own project, though.
No, I mean, the whole thing is, this is not new. There's been so many stories. What was that? Justine, that it happened, a number of years ago in the Ruby community. There was a girl that alleged that she was sexually assaulted by a senior, a developer at a Ruby conference, and kind of along the lines of they were at a bar and the guy was taking shots off her belly button and stuff like. I'm trying to remember all the details, but I mean, the guy was completely. I haven't heard from him in years, and to the best of my knowledge, it's like he kind of got completely kicked out of the community. But I don't think there was ever any like criminal involvement with that. I don't think that anybody ever filed an actual police report. It was all just based on her allegations against him. I don't know if there was ever any real evidence of wrongdoing.
Remember, there was some lady in the AIDS initiative who had a male feminist husband or boyfriend, and she ended up accusing him of something, and he ended up suing her for defamation. And then she ended up killing herself, and then shortly thereafter, the ADA initiative folded. Partly because I'm thinking the ADA initiative was backing her, and after she killed herself, or maybe they were afraid that that guy was going to sue them for defamation because they were kind of involved with it. But I don't remember all the details. I'd have to go find it.
So
yeah, I mean,
I'm going.
Sorry,
if I may say some stuff that redacts names. Papa is myself. When I'm doing this, I'm going to be using phonetic for the first letters of each name. Charlie, you know that I know this dude, right? He became part of my old goth community in Auckland shortly after I left for the USA. Romeo, no, I did not. Papa, what's your take on this? Romeo, just rare for anyone to use the term InfoSec in any headline that Krebs did. Right. Charlie, I've been talking to old friends. He's guilty as fuck. Pull up the article about his chat log. Mentions some people I know from those days 20 years ago. I've been tracking this shit for a month. I did some of the groundwork to put the right people in contact with each other. Papa, fucking hell, fuck him. Never fuck with consent. Charlie, you would not believe how much of a charming, sexy motherfucker he is. Literally the last person you would expect to not have a waiting list of people wanting to get laid with him too. Papa, I've never met him. I've met him. I would believe it. Still, what the fuck? That's from chat log from something else.
Oh,
involving Morgan.
I'm trying to look up the 80 Initiative incident, and I come up with a blog post from Valerie, whatever, what the hell fucking that name, Valerie Laura. One way to resist Trump: become a ally skills workshop teacher. Never mind. Okay, I'm trying to find the case. I know. What was her name? Oh, what was her name? She's famous for programming and talking about autism issues, and she is actually what?
Meredith Patterson?
Yes, that's it.
That's Meredith, right?
Yeah, she did an interview with Milo Yiannopoulos about some of the situations involving the ADA Initiative one. I don't.
I'd like to see this. I haven't seen this yet.
You haven't seen it?
No, I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, sometime look up.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, look up Meredith and Milo, and he did an interview with her, and I think ERS for Breitbart way back in the day. Well, way back as like
Meredith is awesome just in general. Yeah, I definitely is. She's somebody that I think is pretty, believable.
That's what everybody seems to like her a lot. I don't personally know her.
No, I know her and she's awesome.
Yeah, I met her at Nauticon 10, and I can agree she's awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, Meredith is not an SJW, but like that.
Yeah, I got that from the messages. For talking with Milo.
I'm seeing if I can get a friend of mine in here. He has firsthand experience with Morgan shit.
That would be interesting because I'm definitely interested in this whole Morgan thing because that's something I haven't heard about. But I'm just curious why the hell the guy's still able to kind of why nobody's gone after him more. Like, why is he still out there?
I can't guarantee I can get my friend in, or if there is, I can't guarantee it's going to be today. But I'll see if I can get him in, even if it's next week, and we'll see if we can get this talked about.
You have to go look. Let's look up Meredith. Her name comes up pretty quickly in Google search.
Meredith is one of the people who's behind B-Sides Las Vegas.
She's what?
One of the people behind B-Sides Las Vegas.
Yeah, so I know.
Social justice warriors over the last year, particularly in the gaming industry. But one area I haven't
I'm going to play this a bit
yet is open source software. I've got with me today two guests who
You
have
hear
talked about a recent controversy that erupted and their views on the social justice incursion into this area of technology that we don't often hear quite so much about. Eric Raymond and Meredith Patterson. Thanks so much both for joining me.
Thank you. We're glad to be here.
Eric, if perhaps you could just explain briefly who you are, and then we'll move on to Meredith, and I'll have a couple of questions for you afterwards.
I'm a longtime hacker. I work on a lot of infrastructure and open source projects. If you have Google Maps in your phone, you rely on code that I wrote every day. You can't use a browser or a gaming box or even any ATM without relying on code that I wrote. And I helped found the modern open source movement.
Thank you. And Meredith?
Well, I co-founded the field of language theoretic security about 5 years ago. And I also started earlier this year a think tank called Weaponized Social, which focuses on much of the same issues that we've been talking about, increasing aggression online.
Eric, you posted on your blog a story recently that captured the imagination of a lot of people who've been worried about the incursion of hand-wringers and pearl clutchers into the technology industry in all of its various forms. Tell us briefly what your blog post said. What do you say happened?
I heard from a source that is known to me, but which I'm not going to disclose because his career could be destroyed, that Linus Torvalds takes pains never to be alone at technical conferences anymore. and it always travels with posse, because there were repeated attempts by a now defunct women in tech advocacy group called the ADA Initiative to set him up for sexual assault accusation.
That's a very extraordinary claim, isn't it? And many observers of the social justice movement won't be hugely surprised by it, because we're used to seeing these people make extraordinary claims. We're used to seeing them up to no good on social media. But the fact that one of them in real life would be trying to set people up with fake allegations of sexual assault is really quite extraordinary. And your
I don't think it's very extraordinary. We can ask Tim Hunt about it.
Right, of course, the scientist who was accused of making jokes about women in tech, of course, he was actually making a self-deprecating joke, and yet Connie St. Louis, a woman who fabricated facts on her own TV and is, astonishingly, a professor of science journalism at a university in London, accused him of sexism and forced him to resign. It was an extraordinary story. So I suppose, yes, anybody who has been following the travails of the technology industry and various figures in it is used to feminists coming after the stereotypical straight white male. Meredith, have you seen any examples in your work and in your life of these sorts of weird and creepy campaigns against people on the basis of their own skin color or sexual orientation?
It tends to be more thought crime, actually. I've been following the ADA initiative since it was founded, of course. This is something in my wheelhouse, and this is an organization that, was claiming to advocate for me and represent me. And yet the founder of the ADA initiative exhibited some really bizarre behaviors, like, pursuing vendettas against other women in the technology field. She went after Violet Blue, who's a pretty well-known speaker on both technology and sexual health. And
oh, by the way, when you had the Violet Blue, later on, I posted something, the very first B-side San Francisco, I think I recorded. I only recorded 2. And this year it conflicts with B-Sides Nashville, and I'm sorry, I love the barbecue at B-Sides Nashville. But I tweeted out something like, my hotel room is always a safe space for, what was it, possibly tacky shirts, something, and talks on threat mitigation, which is what her talk was about. Her talks were, if you're going to be doing drugs, what things can you do to mitigate the chances of assault and such. If I recall right, she ended up actually giving the talk later on at B-Sides Las Vegas, and I was there to record it.
Yeah, I think the term she was using was harm reduction.
Harm reduction, thank you.
Yeah, harm reduction.
Yeah, that's a good way to phrase it.
One of her talks pulled from the B-Side San Francisco Security Conference because she claimed that it was going to trigger people. Having spoken to the organizer of that conference, I'm actually pretty dubious about that claim, given her behavior when she contacted them to try to get this talk pulled. Her attitude was very, this is obviously absurd. This is going to get people hurt. Completely refusing to take a look at the history of hacker community talks that have taken direct looks at social problems in the hacker community, such as drug use and sexual promiscuity.
I think it's actually for the hacker community. I don't know about the dev community in general. The hacker community, we're some hard drinkers, and I think we probably. A few talks about social issues is probably good. I'm gonna share this tweet that I did back in the day. My comment was, for any con I'm at, I want to declare my hotel room a safe space for dongle jokes, tacky shirts, yoga pants, and talks about harm reduction. Because all these things had recently caused some shit at various conferences. As the case of, the tacky shirt is not. I don't really think it's a tacky shirt. I like it. If Ellie Pressman hears this, I'm not calling your shirt tacky. I like your shirt, and I appreciate that I've commissioned you to make 2 more since then that are a little different. All right, the shirt I'm talking about, Ellie Pressman, she made the shirt that.
I know exactly which one you're talking about. The one where the guy landed the fucking thing on the goddamn comment, and of course the thing everyone's yelling about is the fucking shirt.
That's Matt Taylor, yes. Ellie Pressman made his shirt. I heard about that thing, and I ordered the same shirt. Then later on, I ordered a gender swap version of it from my buddy Info Sister, but instead she has a bunch of scantily clad firemen on hers. Big buff, and so she can drive men out of STEM now too. And I just ordered a new shirt that has a bunch of old style locks all over it. So I'm gonna wear that in lockpicking villages.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
That was the tweet I said. But yeah, she got in some shit because of some people might be triggered because she's talking about, wait, I don't just looking at her title. If I was a rape victim and I'm, and people have given me shit because I use trigger as a joke, and they're all legitimate things that you have to worry about triggering. For instance, loud fireworks works on the 4th of July, and if you're a veteran, that fucks with people. If you actually are a rape victim, and I can see how people talk about rape is going to upset you, but once you see that title, I don't know. I would, if I'm prone to being put back in that mindset whenever I see that, I would avoid going to that talk.
Yeah, I mean that's something that I feel about too. Is like I have a hell of a lot of sympathy for people that are, that relive really traumatic experiences. But I mean, for God's sake, if you're triggered by something just based on reading the title of the talk, then why go to the talk? Stay away, go to something else, go away, go take a walk, have lunch, do whatever. But, if just reading the title of the talk triggers you, then that's probably a sign that you shouldn't go to it.
Or seek professional help. But,
yeah, because I mean, really, it is. If you are that fragile to the point where just reading about something triggers you to the point where you fall apart, then you're not functioning. And I have extremely, I'm extremely sympathetic to that. But that you're not functioning at that point, you need help.
Well, I got to add something here. I'm looking at George Forbush's comments in the actual YouTube stream, and George, feel free to hop on, man. Due process. One, there's a difference between criminal charges and social stigma for suspicion. O.J. Simpson got a due process. People just still think he did it. They're allowed to. Granted, but I'm thinking even people's personal choices of whether or not to socially stigmatize someone, you should at least look into it more than someone said something. I've had people say
absolutely. I mean, there is still something to be said for yeah, I get it. It's court of public opinion versus taking somebody to and actually having due process in a criminal section, or in a criminal capacity. But I mean, you don't just listen to somebody's accusation, never see any evidence, never there's never anything concrete, and you just decide the person's guilty. I mean, how is that fair?
Well, this guy's a male. Well, that's assuming they're not a male feminist. Anyway, second point George makes: slander laws protect people from false accusations. I'm going to get through all of these things, and if you can't prove it one way or another, it's not a legal issue and has nothing to do with due process. Well, here's the deal: even if it's not a legal issue, if you're like a part of an organization, decide whether or not to exile someone from the organization, like let's say a conference. You got to follow due process before you. I'm just going to. Well, I want to follow due process before just kicking someone out, even if it's not a legal issue. And he says about, I'm picking up what you're putting down, nods, and he says something like about to have a discussion where they conflate social stigma with legal repercussions. Maybe it's sort of conflating, but I mean, even making social decisions, I think there should be some due process.
I agree with you, and what I can add on to that is I actually had the discussion with somebody the other day on Twitter where they were saying, well, if somebody accuses you and you don't like the accusation and you were not guilty, there are things you could do. Well, yeah, sure. If there's defamation or slander going on, yeah, by all means, you can file a civil suit at a hell of an expense to you. It's not that easy to, you have to, it costs money to file somebody and file a defamation suit. And if at that point you lost your career, you lost your reputation, you lost your standing in the community, you're not going to get that back. You could file a defamation suit and it might get you some financial compensation and it might get you an apology, but it's not going to reinstate you back into a community. So I don't think it should be that, we shouldn't have the attitude of like, well, we can accuse people and if they're not guilty, they can just file a defamation suit. They shouldn't have to do that if they're not guilty.
Yeah, and this has nothing to do with due process, but it has to do more with like who we like and who we don't like and favoritism and does this person agree, man? I mean, you got exiled from a community because of your internalized misogyny, quote unquote.
Oh, I've been exiled from so many different communities, and the worst culprits have been the women in tech groups. And essentially, that's why I kind of laughed when Meredith said earlier, it's like thought crimes by it's women in tech turning on other women in tech. Yeah, and I mean the bottom line is I can't get that back no matter what I do. I never did anything wrong, but they went after me anyway. So that's exactly what's happening with a lot of these guys. It's like, look, if they're guilty, they're guilty, and then I want to see justice for any victim, anybody who's a legitimate victim. But if there's just a bunch of hearsay and a bunch of kind of vague accusations being made against people. I don't think it's right that they're being kicked out of communities and they're losing, a lot, that they spent a lifetime building a career in tech, and that's just being taken away from them based on a bunch of allegations.
Yeah, I know Miss Bats got a lot of shit when she came out against the post. It seems like a blackmail thing. And Miss Bats, by the way, is not like a far right person by any means. She hates Trump. She's very right, Miss Bats. If you ever hear this, love you dearly. But great friend, great person. You're a little bit more empathetic than I am towards some people's, claims. But she's not one of these people. In other words, she's not a shitlord like I am. Miss Bats is not. But she got huge shit for just saying, I think this Tumblr post goes a little bit far. It seems like blackmail. And people gave her huge shit. A whole bunch of people unfollowed her. People were sending her some shit about her, being against other women and all this other crap.
Yeah.
Is this the same Tumblr post that now has been edited to specifically call out Will Genovese?
Yes, it is.
The bullshit about the claims, though, is if you're found not guilty, that fucking black mark does not come off your reputation. You know what I mean?
It does not. It stays with you forever. You could try and, rebuild your life, but I mean, companies are still going to be like, people are going to be talking about you. Conferences might not give you a chance to speak. You're not going to get that back. No matter how many defamation lawsuits you file, you're not going to get it back.
Yeah, and like someone said earlier, the InfoSec community or, whatever part of tech you're in is generally kind of small. So if you want to work for any of the well-known or bigger companies, you may never be able to get hired again.
Exactly.
The statement is something like, everybody reads the original story, no one reads the retraction.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly.
And nobody bothers to stop and ask for facts or, even ask you for your side of the story or anything like that. They read something, they assume that you were guilty.
I'm going to play a little bit more Milo and Meredith and Eric here.
For some reason, she decided that, none of that mattered and that only the opinions of her and her posse mattered. They managed to completely drive the dialogue there.
Eric, it seems to me there's something weird going on, both in technology and also in the video games industry. These are industries that are male-dominated, if you like, but they're dominated by a particular kind of man who is, racked with white middle-class guilt, if you want to put it like that, about diversity and female representation. It's an industry, both the gaming and the technology industries have such an undeserved reputation, in my view, for being terrible places for women to work. They're actually some of the most welcoming, tolerant, and pleasant places that any minority or marginalized person could ever hope to end up in. Why do they both have such a bad reputation, and why do people within those industries themselves sort of pearl clutch endlessly about diversity and representation? Why do you think this is happening? Because it seems to me that if you compare it to the law, or if you compare it to almost any other profession, journalism even, tech and gaming are pretty great places for women to be, aren't they?
All right, I'm not a woman, so I don't know this. I'm looking around. I don't know. I've had someone say that I haven't done any research because it's clearly worse in tech, and I'm like, what research are you talking about? Because I'm not buying that it's worse in tech than other places. Don't get me wrong. Women get harassed in tech, sure. They get assaulted in tech, sure. I'm not, but somehow I'm thinking no more, no less than, let's say, law or in medicine or any place where there's let's say it was a conference environment. You go to some medical conference. I'm gonna guess the same amount of shit happens there as it does at a HackerCon. The one exception is, there are more, how do you put it this way? Spectrum people probably at HackerCons, and they might not know the level at which to go. And I have a buddy who he got hugely upset because he meant to give his friend a hug. We walked up behind her and give her a hug, and they know each other pretty well. But it kind of triggered something from her past, and he feels really, really bad about it. And maybe I don't know. As the only woman in this chat right now, I'll let Marlene run with that.
I mean, I think you do have a point. I mean, I do think that there's. Well, let me break it down in two things. What my thought on it is, I think you're right as far as saying that I don't think it's any worse in tech or any part of tech than it is in other industries. I personally have a friend who's actually now in tech, but years ago she worked in a law firm. She was a PR person or doing marketing at a legal company or a large legal firm, and she ended up quitting her job there because she was was repeatedly sexually harassed by a lawyer in the firm who ended up making partner in the firm. So, I mean, I know it happens in other industries, and I've spoken with enough women to know that this is not exclusive to tech. We only have to look at what's happening in the media to know that it's happening in entertainment, it's happening in media companies, it's happening all over the place. This is not exclusive to tech. The second thing is, yeah, I do think to some extent we have people that are, perhaps a little bit more on the spectrum or a little bit less clued into social cues and, being in tech. But I don't think it's just that. I think in other industries we have guys who just get off on the power. They might go and harass somebody because it's a power trip. I don't think it's necessarily that you can chalk it up to guys not knowing social cues because they're on the spectrum or being a little bit more neuroatypical. I think it's just, if somebody is prone to be a harasser, they enjoy the sense of power it gives them. And I don't think that's necessarily due to being, on the spectrum.
Point. Yeah, I'm thinking more actually awkward things as opposed to outright. Like I've been reading a lot of stories about people at conferences grabbing other people's asses at conferences. The funny thing is, one person who's complaining about that did the exact same thing to someone else's husband, and apparently some dude's nipple at Las Vegas. But let's not go into exactly naming names because she hasn't named my name on a particular blog post, so I won't name her name. Everybody but Marlene probably knows what I'm talking about.
I'm sure it's not hard to figure out.
Yeah.
No, and I mean, I think you're right. I mean, there is probably some of that, like, just awkward stuff that, if you looked at it and you're really, if you were really like just rational about it, it might not seem like a big deal to a lot of people, but at that time, to the person that's happening to, it seems like a really big deal, and they feel uncomfortable. But the person who was doing it didn't think anything about it. Walking up to somebody and giving them a hug, normally you wouldn't think anything about it, but because at that time it triggered something for somebody else, or it made them feel uncomfortable, whatever, it becomes a much bigger issue. And I mean, maybe that is true, that maybe some of that is more, prevalent in tech. I honestly, that part, I don't know if that's, because if you're going to a medical conference, it's not that common. There's a little bit more of a professionalism there. You don't necessarily walk up to your colleagues and give them a hug. If you're going to a scientific conference, I've never seen anybody there like walking up to somebody just giving them a hug, unless it's somebody that they really know very well. But I don't know if that is something that happens more in tech, if it's just because tech is a little bit more of a casual thing.
Your dev work is medicine related, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, you have experience in both of those worlds that
no, I mean, medical conferences, like, I can honestly say I've never seen that happen. But, you don't go to just a general medical conference. And I mean, obviously you still have a lot of the same stuff as far as people going out for drinks afterwards and stuff like that. And people do get a little bit more casual. And believe me, there's plenty of sexual harassment happening in medicine as a field. You have plenty of that happening. And there's plenty of female physicians that could tell you really horror stories of stuff that happened when they were residents and attendings, and not just females, but I've heard from male physicians that were harassed by female attendings. So it does happen. But I don't think the general atmosphere at a medical conference is not like where somebody's going to walk up and give somebody else a hug. And it might be a little bit more casual in tech, but I think it's also true. And if you're going to an event for, like an artistic kind of thing, I think in the arts, it's probably pretty common for people to walk up, in like an artistic setting and give each other a hug if they're at a gallery opening together or stuff like that. I don't think that's just tech.
Yeah.
I'd like to point out hackers tend to be more huggy motherfuckers than most people.
That's what. That is true, and that's partly because a couple of people who really introduced. I'm not going to say their names here because I don't know if they would be associated with this cast. But there's a couple of people in the hacker community who really popularized hugs.
I think I know who you're talking about, and I have no objection to that. If you know what I mean.
I mean, it's a weird thing. It's like, either way, I look at it as like, I'm not very touchy-feely either way. Somebody could give me a hug. I'm not going to be offended by it. I'm not going to think anything about it. But it's not something I would do if I'm at a conference. Even with other women or people that I know very well, if like somebody comes up to me and it's like, oh, I haven't seen you in forever. How are you? That kind of thing. It's like, I'm not going to be giving them a hug. That's just not, I don't do that. But I do know that that people do it. And, you know, it is kind of an interesting thing. It's like, where is that line between just being casual and being friendly and giving somebody a hug, not thinking anything about it, versus giving somebody a hug and not knowing that that person is really not okay with it.
Yeah. And it's hard to say, and it's come kind of a meme in hacker culture, but probably not so much in other places that, you know. Anyway, we'll continue a little bit more of this because I wanted to get to who the hell was I talking about with the AIDA initiative.
I think it's a form of virtue signaling. People believe that they're sending the right virtue signals and tribal identification phrases by being hugely publicly concerned about these issues, even or perhaps especially if there's actually nothing much going on.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I thought one of you all started speaking. All right.
Behavior. If you look at their revealed preferences, that doesn't stand up to serious scrutiny. You know, because this is the same group of people that, you know, for instance, when Andrea Shepard from the Tor Project was being gang mobbed by crazies who were fans of Pando Daily, they were trying to take down the Tor Project, and so they decided to go after one of the developers. She called out to, you know, the Geek Feminism Wiki maintainers for help, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we'll get right on that," because she's a.
Well, I looked at the Geek Feminism shit. Their website is basically just far leftist, believe everything, slightly slanderous bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty extreme. A lot of like their stuff that they put on there as far as, you know, I know I've seen like how they've influenced code of conducts and stuff like that. And a lot of the stuff that they put out there's like, it's just pretty extreme. And I'm not saying that you know, some of this stuff is not stuff that we should be concerned about, but like they take it all the way to there's no evidence that any of this happened, but they make it sound as if this is, you know, happens at every event.
So about the topic of hugging, there's an Overwatch fan comic which pretty much sums up perfectly.
Yeah, for anyone I'll take a look at it. It's posted in the chat.
There it is.
All right, let me see this thing.
Remember that the person doing the hugging Sombra as a hacker in the game.
All right, yeah. Thanks for telling me that because I would not know because I don't play many video games. I strangely enough get plenty of accusations of being a gamergator. Does do this shit? Yes. Okay, I'll need some more explanation. Here's the cartoon though, but I need some explanation.
The cartoon joke is that Sombra hugs everyone. Sombra is the character doing the hugging.
Oh, okay.
So the group is Talon, so she's asking, does she do this to everyone in Talon? And everyone in Talon is just going, yes.
Okay.
Libertarian, and they don't want anything to do with her.
That's interesting, isn't it? I noticed a tweet from Dana Lash, who's an American conservative commentator, about the South by Southwest.
Who I find incredibly beautiful. Anyway, off the topic, I think she's married. Doesn't matter.
Harassment Summit. Now, those who are listening who don't know what that is, there were two panels planned about video games. Neither of them were described as being explicitly pro or against the notorious movement that shall not be mentioned from the last 18 months. But both of them got pulled because of claims of harassment and threats of abuse and all the rest of it. And then various left-wing media organizations came out and suggested that they wouldn't attend South by Southwest unless there was, some serious changes and harassment was properly addressed and various other things. So now there's an all-day harassment summit at the next South by Southwest conference. And what Dana Lash noticed is that of all of the speakers, and they have a huge lineup of what London Spectator magazine would call cry bullies, the people who exist in sort of this quantum superstate between aggressor and victim, constantly provoking people and then crying foul when they get a response. Of all of the extraordinary list of people up there to complain about the supposed abuse and harassment that they get merely for being women, merely for being minorities in the tech and gaming industries, there wasn't a single conservative. Eric, to what extent do you think that this is that politics play a role in who gets defended and who doesn't?
I have opinions about this, but I don't think that should be part of the conversation. If we talk about this as a left versus right issue, we get dragged into a lot of disputes that I frankly consider irrelevant.
Yeah, no, I think it's really more of an essentialist issue. I mean, there's a very narrow view of femininity that is promulgated by these women in tech groups. It's very neurotypical. It's can interact easily and fluently with business and marketing folks. And that certainly corresponds to a lot of the people who want to have jobs in technology. But many of the people, particularly women who find technology to be a welcoming and comforting place, are people who in part ended up there because other career fields are awkward and hostile towards them.
Right.
Yeah, imagine if now my understanding, Meredith is a little bit on the autism spectrum, right?
She does have autism.
And so I don't interact with her in person much, but everybody tells me she's a very nice lady. And like everybody who I trust, so I imagine if you have a little bit of social awkwardness, I do think we're pretty damn accepting of that in the tech community in general.
Yes and no. I think I used to think the same thing. I used to think that because I certainly do think it is more accepting than a lot of other industries. But after having seen what some of the comments that people made, for example, now following James Damore's story with Google, some of the comments and the criticism that came out of it's like, well, I don't know if you guys saw the article that came out that The Guardian did a couple of days ago on, kind of like a more reflective piece on James Damore, and the way that the Guardian journalist wrote it, it was almost like, well, everything that happened, the entire Google memo can be blamed on the fact that James Damore just didn't know any better. He's got autism. And I mean, that was an insulting thing to do to an autist, to people with autism everywhere, because even if that is true, if he is high level, high functioning, Meredith certainly is high functioning, his autism had nothing to do with him writing the Google memo. Meredith is a very accomplished, very successful person despite having autism. It doesn't define her. It doesn't hold her back. And yeah, she happens to enjoy tech and she happens to be very good at what she does, but and tech is more accepting, but I don't think that it means that, there's anything, that we should look at them as like, well, they can't function anywhere else.
Hi, I'm Aspie as fuck. People who have that attitude can go fuck themselves.
Exactly.
I've noticed a couple of codes of conduct in the open source community.
Cock, drink.
Pop up in various blog posts. My colleague at Breitbart.
I want the cock.
One of them. They always seem to be fueled by social justice warriors. They use language that sounds perfectly unobjectionable, about abuse and harassment and all the rest of it. But have you noticed a rise in these? And are they yet being misused to sort of punish people who are thinking the wrong way?
Well, shortly after I posted my thing about the ADA initiative apparently going after Linus, I learned of a rather blood-chilling little incident where somebody using the handle Django Con Cardiff effectively demanded that one of his pull requests, that's a kind of software modification, be merged into a project because he's a person of color and not doing so is discriminatory. Well, it's actually a little more vague than that. He was careful to craft his language so that if you squinted, you could say he was just calling for diversity. But the thing is, when he did this, he said, I suggest you adopt this particular code of conduct, which is, it's a bunch of SJW rhetoric. And the phrase that really bothered me when I read it was that it was opposed to what it called the cult of meritocracy.
Well, I see so many people hating on meritocracy also, which fucking annoys the shit out of me.
Yeah, and that's a pretty new one. It definitely, I would say that's something that came into code of conduct, code of conducts in the last 2 years. Most of the tech ones I've seen is definitely very much about anti-meritocracy. They really want to get rid of that idea.
I see someone say something about, hey, I am a diversity expert, ask me anything. And someone said something like, oh, I don't really worry about diversity in itself. I just hire based on merit, and it takes care of itself. And the chick's husband, and I'm gonna call her a chick. She's gonna hate that. At least I didn't call her a common San Diego cosplayer this time. Oh shit, I just did. Anyway, her husband jibes in and says, look at this dumbass, and it hasn't worked so far. No, meritocracy is a fucking thing. And yes, there are prejudices out there. But in general, you do the work in and you avoid certain assholes, meritocracy will get you a long fucking way.
Well, I mean, the fact is, there's plenty of people. That's the part that I've always run into, and that I get a lot of heat from women saying that. It's like I know plenty of women in tech that are very successful, and they got there because they're damn good at what they do. The sexism didn't stop them, the patriarchy didn't hold them back, the bullshit didn't stop them. They got there because they're good at what they do. If you are good at what you do, you shouldn't fear the meritocracy. You will make it. I mean, tech is not that hostile.
I'm going to say this right now. There is a distinct problem with HR in particular, though, when it comes to meritocracy. Anyone who's...
You got to skip HR, because HR, man, HR is full of people who don't necessarily know what the technical skill is. If you want to do a good job in tech, you kind of have to get your name known by the direct bosses you're going to work for. And then they bypass HR for you.
That is,
That's
I do think
that's how I've always got through.
All right, one at a time.
Sorry.
Hey, Ali, say what you were going to say, then Marlene say what you were going to say.
That's about a point. That's how I've gotten every job I've ever done.
All right, I think he just said that's pretty much how he got the job he has, or the job he has had. Marlene?
No, I mean, I just want to say that I agree with you. It's like, I do think that, in the end, it's like the managers can put in a word for you if they like you, they've seen your code, they've looked at your GitHub repo or whatever, and they want to hire you. They can get around a lot of the stuff that HR is doing. It's like if they're just looking at a blind resume, they've never seen this person before, they have no idea who the person is, then HR's opinion is going to matter a lot more. But if that's a manager that knows you from a conference, or they've talked with you before or whatever else, they're going to put in a work, they're going to want to try and get you on their team.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's how I got where I am in InfoSec. I started a blog, and I worked for 8 years before truthfully, I could have got an InfoSec job before, but my blog had been up for like 8 years before I got my first real InfoSec job. That was because I'm a lazy person who was working at a university.
And that's how I got the job that I got now, just simply because the person who I submitted my resume to didn't know of me directly, but he knew of people who knew of me.
And they knew your work.
Yeah.
That is the way to get ahead, because, if you're techie, getting past the HR filter, hell, the only way to get way past the HR filter is a lot of certifications, a lot of what they call credentialism, and that is a pain in the ever-loving ass, because not everybody with a lot of credentials is necessarily competent. So,
you have paper tigers.
But then again, that also makes people who have social issues and don't put themselves out there and interact. That makes them at a disadvantage. Even if they have the skill set, I'll play a little more of this.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, if you remember the controversy a month or so ago about the Opal open source project, the writer of the Contributor Covenant Code of Conduct decided to filed an issue with that software saying one of your maintainers is saying transphobic things on Twitter, and was trying to police the project and get them to kick out one of their maintainers over something that the maintainer had said completely outside of the venue.
Opal guy.
That was incredibly sympathetic. I actually read the tweets of this gentleman. I'm trying to remember his name, but it's not coming.
Yeah, I know him. Yeah, that's Opal guy.
He basically said it's a shame that people kill themselves because they can't accept reality. And I understand how people take that, but here's the deal. If you're transgender, you are born, in general, with the exception of intersex people who have like Klinefelters or AIS or something like that, you are born one gender or the other. And a lot of the dysphoria, I mean, if you can, it is an issue in your head that you are physically one gender, but your brain tells you you're a different gender. And having that kind of dysphoria, like, I'm sure there's also people out there who kill themselves because I can't lose weight. Anything like that. And what the guy said to me actually came off as pretty damn sympathetic to the plight. It's like, you are one gender, you want to be a different gender, but even after you do the transitioning and hormone therapy, I mean, the media throws out these great examples that look exactly like the other gender that they aim to be, like, let's say Blair White, or they throw out Caitlyn Jenner, who had a lot of more money for surgeries than other transgender people do. Not everybody can look like that, and you know what? I can honestly, let's say I was trans, if I had gender dysphoria and I did not like being male, what I look like it's never going to look particularly feminine. I would never be.
Yeah, I mean that's true for a lot of. I think that is true for a lot of people that do transition. Is like they're, it's not as simple as just like getting, sexual reproductive organs done. It's also facial reconstruction at some point, because some people do have more masculine features, or some people may have more feminine features, and it's you're not necessarily going to be happy by the time it's all done.
Yeah, Blair lucked up in a certain sense. I don't want to call it lucky, because having gender dysphoria at all doesn't sound lucky. But I've seen pictures of her before transitioning, and she still looked more masculine than she does now.
Yes.
She's still very feminine. There's some people, though, that no matter what, they're still going to look very masculine, and I can see how that would cause you huge distress if your brain tells you, I'm this gender, and I look in the mirror and, well, shit.
Well, also, and then there's certainly also the thing is like voice. You look at even somebody like Caitlyn Jenner is a good example. She's transitioned. She looks very feminine, but she's not able to adjust her voice. You may have to invest in a lot of vocal therapy and speech therapy and things like that in order to change your voice. But your voice is still pretty deep. It's still a relatively masculine voice. And it so happens that I know that, Coraline Ida Emko, who wrote the Contributor Covenant, she actually I know from her tweets that she's commented in the past that she has that issue where she talks on the phone. People tend to think of her as a male. And, it's an unfortunate reality. It's like you can go through the surgery and the hormone replacement therapy and all of that, but, you're not necessarily going to end up to the point where you're not necessarily going to pass for everybody. And that's just part of it. It's like you look at Chelsea Manning. Chelsea Manning is one of the ones who's lucky in the sense that she actually does have very feminine features. But you listen kind of to her voice, and it's still she kind of has the same issue. She doesn't exactly sound feminine.
Yeah, there's a YouTuber I listen to named Taryn Meyer. She's Canadian.
Taryn Myers is another good one.
And her voice, though, I don't know, it's feminine but husky.
Exactly.
And she's got that. Well, she's kind of got not quite the accent. You have an accent that's somewhere between South African and Southern.
Well, I've been here a long time, baby. It's bound to happen.
But Taryn Meyer's accent is very South African.
She's off the boat.
Yeah, and it's a pretty cool accent to listen to, I think. But some people end up doing better than others. But now I forget even why we went down this particular track.
Yeah, I mean, I've had customers. I had a customer. I can't say the details, but I'll just give you the overview. Their name was one way, but then when I got them on the phone, it was a whole different ball game, and I was like, trying to not really go there, but I still wound up offending them.
Yeah, I mean, I think back of the whole situation with Opalgate and kind of what happened with the way that they went after that whole situation, and I mean, to a large extent, I think what people also forgot was that it had to do with his views on transgender issues, but also I think Elia is more conservative. He is more religious, and to some extent it is just one of those things where it was coming from a place of
he's a Catholic pro-lifer.
Yeah, he's Catholic, he's Italian, so there's just a little bit more of that. It's not something that he's in his faith, and being that he is religious, it's not something that he's necessarily comfortable with. I don't think he openly discriminates against somebody, but he had views on it, and he expressed those views. And I mean, again, he should be allowed to express those views as long as it doesn't harm somebody else. And I don't think he ever advocated, I mean, I know he never advocated to harm anybody. He just expressed his views on transitioning and children going through gender reassignment surgery and stuff like that. And, because I'm very open about the same thing. It's like, I'm not comfortable with the idea of children, going through gender reassignment surgery. I'm just not.
If my family left it to me, I would have been trans Spider-Man as a kid. But unfortunately, my bigoted parents would not let me get the radioactive spider bite treatment. But kids can't exactly make that up. And a lot of the transgender children, I'm pretty sure you ever heard the term Munchausen by proxy?
Yes.
I'm thinking a lot of it is that.
Well, I mean, I just think that, we don't give kids the right to let's list, if you look at just medicine in general, kids don't have the right to decide that they want to go through certain types of surgery. A child does not have the legal right to go in and say, I elect to have cosmetic surgery, or I elect to not get vaccinated. If my parents decide that they want to have, let me go in and get vaccinated, a child does not have the legal right to say, I don't want to get vaccinated. So if we don't give them the legal right to make any of those medical decisions, how can we, make something that's an irreversible surgery based on a 4-year-old's views that might change a year from now? I'm not saying that there aren't kids that know and, they might end up going through it by the time that they're 18, but I don't think we should go ahead and do an irreversible surgery on them by the time they're 5 years old. That's not right.
Yeah, that brings up a whole can of worms about, I would have to bring up a different topic. I'm going to lightly touch this right now. What is parental rights versus individual child's rights? Because obviously, we would not say that. I think we both agree that parents don't have the right to say, yeah, sure, this kid can get this thing that's going to be life-changing before he can actually make a decision because the parents thought it was a good idea. At the same time, let's say the parents are like druggies. I'm a very libertarian guy about drugs. I'm like, let anybody put any substance into their body they fucking want. However, if they have kids, I don't really want heroin addicts raising their kids. You know what I'm saying? But there's other people who say, how do I raise my kid? I want to send my kid to this certain school. That should be allowed. So there is a big, I'm not sure where I'm drawing the line. You know what I'm saying?
No, I completely agree, and believe me, it is one of those things where I think a lot of parents are just, they're trying to do the right thing for their kids, and they think that they're doing the right thing by, if a child comes to a parent and says, I think I'm a girl and I think I'm a boy, I could see how parents would go through that and be like, well, I want what's best for my child, and if it's going to make them happy, I'm going to support them regardless. But I mean, I also know, just based on my own experience with kids, that you can have a 4-year-old telling you today that I'm going to become a helicopter pilot when I'm grown up. And 6 months later, they want to become a fireman when they grow up. They don't necessarily know what they're not sure of what they want to be. You can't, that's an irreversible decision. They can't take that back. Their brains are not fully developed yet. I just don't think it's right to let them go through something like as drastic as gender reassignment. The whole process of hormone therapy and even surgery until their brains are fully developed.
Make me all right. The female surgeries are pretty. The female to male surgeries are also, though. I went a little bit into them, but damn, to make a what do they call it? A new phallus? That's some pretty difficult looking stuff.
I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. It's, on top of the fact that, it's the hormone therapy is pretty tough on people. And, for a male to, you have to remove the Adam's apple and everything else. There's a lot that goes into, going through this whole process. And, so I had a hell of a lot of sympathy for Elia when Opalgate happened, because I knew where he was coming from, and he is not transphobic. He's not somebody that is trying to push transgender people out in any way. He's not discriminating against any individual. He simply expressed his views. And, and I think that was unfortunate that they kind of pushed him out just based on that.
Yeah. Agreed. Though they didn't actually end up pushing him out, because I don't think they succeeded in pushing him out, did they?
Well, I mean, it did have like everything, kind of like what's, what we kind of circle around back to, like the sexual assault allegations. It's like it certainly had an effect on his career, and he was deplatformed for a while. And I don't think to some extent, I don't think he's ever fully come back from that, because he's not somebody that has done a lot of speaking in the Ruby community after that event happened. And granted, to some extent now, I think he's moved on and he's doing other stuff, but it did take a toll on him.
I can imagine. I've been on the end of a Twitter hate mob. People talk about harassment. I've seen someone whine about harassment who was harassing other people. I've seen someone talk about dogpiling someone and then whine about, well, supposedly Gamergate. All right, here's what she did. She replied and boosted the signal of someone who said something. I read the post, and she read it as, read the post, and she said, "I'm the author," and the woman retweeted it or like commented on it, and then she said a bunch of Gamergaters were dogpiling her. She was joining in a dog pile herself, and it's like, oh shit, this is hypocritical crap.
Well, that's the problem. The problem too is like everything becomes Gamergate when there's no relation to Gamergate whatsoever. I've seen that happen a lot of times on Twitter. It's like people get into disagreements on stuff, and all of a sudden it becomes like, well, you're a Gamergater. It's like I was not involved with Gamergate at all. I don't even know why you're bringing that into the mix. But for some reason, it becomes, well, just because you are disagreeing with me, that must mean that you're a Gamergate supporter.
Yeah, I've seen that a few times. I've been called alt-right several times, and I'm like, no, I'm not really alt-right. I'm a right-leaning libertarian with a few TradCon views. That is pretty much me in a nutshell. And if you can talk to me about unions, I'm like, well, sometimes unions are in a good place, sometimes aren't. You're talking about socialized medicine. I'm like, well, our current system sucks because it's not quite free market. Maybe socialized medicine might be better. I'm not quite sure. I mean, my views, as they are right now, would be, hell, left-wing if you go back 50 years ago, but
right. I mean, that's the whole thing, is that the benchmark has shifted so much because people that are now considered, moderates or kind of right-leaning centrists are people that 50 years ago would have probably been more liberal. And, people that are, I think that this whole thing is like the whole, if you look at the overlap between the two groups, between left and right, and there was previously, I think a much larger group of people that were more moderate. And now we've become so polarized that if you're not with Bernie, then you're alt-right. That's the impression that I'm getting. It's like there's just no tolerance for people who are really like, well, I am liberal on some things, I'm conservative on some things, I'm libertarian on some things. It's not hard, it's kind of hard to box me into one category, but there's no tolerance for that. People are like, well, if you don't agree with me, that must mean that you're a progressive, or that must mean that you are alt-right.
That's why I'm alt-height. So me, Jack, Illustrious Nightshade, and you would be able to join. I'm not sure about Owie. I don't remember how tall Owie is. Owie, are you tall enough to join the alt-height? You have to be at least 6 foot.
And what's the cutoff again?
6 foot for men, 5'9" for women.
Okay, yeah, I'm just like touching 5'9". I'm 5'8" without heels, but I'm usually in heels, so I get a pass, right?
Well, I don't know heels. Heels is actually, using heels would probably make it appropriate, cultural appropriation.
Oh, screw it. Then I'm in. I'm just gonna lie. Fuck off.
Yeah, I met Jack. He's about my height, I think, at least. Maybe taller. I was drinking a lot of mead when I met Jack in person.
Don't worry, I was pretty fucking drunk myself, so.
Yeah. All right. Actually, you know what? I had Molina actually here for the next topic more than anything else, and it's related to this one. So we may come back to Milo if we want to continue the stream. But actually, watch the stream sometime. And yeah, Mel represents herself very well. Eric does, and it's actually an interesting thing. But I sent the link to y'all in the various chats, and I should probably put the freaking thing in the show notes. Crap.
Eric is just in general a really interesting guy to follow. He's really smart, and he doesn't tweet as much as I, but he's just an interesting guy to follow.
I'm adding it to the show notes. So anyway, because I always put the link in the show notes on YouTube. So if anybody wants to go watch the video later on, it actually is pretty good. And yes, Milo is an iconoclast. He is an asshole at times, like the shit he did to Ben Shapiro when Ben's new child was being born. He sent him a picture of a black child to somehow insinuate that was an asshole move. That was a dick.
Oh no, absolutely. I mean, Milo is a shitlord, when it serves his purposes, but I think the one thing that people need to remember with Milo is that, I mean, that the guy makes a career out of being, pushing people's buttons. If you can kind of look past it and not get upset about everything he does, then, there's times when he says stuff that's not completely offensive, and that there is some truth to some of the stuff that he's saying. And then if it really does offend you, then just walk away and, turn down the podcast. Don't listen to him. But it's, that's what he gets off on doing.
The fucker is gay. He's half Jewish. I can't call him Jewish. He'll claim Jewish at times because his mom is Jewish, and so technically by law, by passing, but he my understanding is he's more of a Catholic than a Jewish person as far as how he was raised.
Yes, that's
Gay,
true.
half Jewish, has a black husband, actually African American husband, he said. So I'm assuming he married someone who has American citizenship.
Yeah, I think they got married. As far as I know, they got married in Hawaii, and as far as I know, his husband is American.
So yeah, well, he's probably gonna get citizenship then. So that's all good. Welcome to America, Milo.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not entirely sure, but that's at least what I've heard is that.
Yeah,
I think
I'm not sure either, but I remember I'm pretty damn sure I heard Milo explicitly say that his husband is African American, and not just say my husband is black. If his husband is black, it could be a black dude living in Canada, black dude who lives in UK, black dude living in Canada. But he said African American, so I'm assuming he actually married some dude who was
Yeah, and given that Milo's been living in Miami for several years, I mean, I think it's likely that it's probably somebody he met here versus somebody he met in London. I think it's reasonable to think it's probably American.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next one. And I added Meredith, Eric, Milo thing to the show notes. You might want to go see the video later on. It's actually pretty interesting. Well, listen to it. It's not the video is just Milo's pretty face up there on the screen.
Yeah, he is cute, isn't he? I mean, he cleans up pretty good.
He does look pretty good. And there's a beautiful talk between him and Sargon of Akkad. And someone took a screen cap of Sargon of Akkad looking at Milo. And someone said, I wish I could find someone who looks at me the way Sargon because it is a beautiful, adoring look. It's awesome. Anyway, we're going to move on to the next one. This is Emily Lindy. Emily Lindy is someone who posted something, and she's since gone private. She is an author, apparently, for the Teen Vogue magazine. Is Teen Vogue actually a magazine, or is it just a website?
No, it's an actual magazine.
Here's what she tweeted. 2 tweets. I'm just going to run them together when I read it. Here's an unpopular opinion. I'm actually not at all concerned about innocent men losing their jobs over false sexual assault harassment allegations. Sorry, if some innocent men's reputations have to take a hit in the process of undoing the patriarchy, that is the price I'm willing to pay. First of all, you're not paying it. The dude is.
Correct.
And I like Blair Wright's comment on this when she tweeted an image of it. It's unpopular because it's fucking heartless, you banshee.
No, I mean, I think, a number of people said that exactly, said that exact same thing. It's like, in the end, you're not the one paying the price. It's innocent people paying that, including, Donald Trump's son, Don Jr. He tweeted at her as well and said the same thing. It's like, what you're saying is it's just such a horrible idea because you're not the one paying the price.
But let that happen to her and see how quickly her attitude changes.
I had some fucknut in a Facebook thing. All right, I had some buddies in it. They were saying, "Oh, this is shit," and the one who's saying it was shit, she's actually a lady of African heritage, and then some other motherfucker who is of course a fat neckbeard, as you'd expect, said somewhere, "Well, there's so many people who get off scot free. Maybe we should listen to what she said," or something like that. And another friend of mine was like, eventually got to the point where, okay, as long as you're going to white knight, why don't you be the one to take the sacrifice?
Right. I mean, I had an exchange last night with somebody on Twitter that went after me and because I kind of tweeted at Emily as well and said to her, it's like, so this is all just, collateral damage for you and taking down the patriarchy. It's like, how the hell do you sleep at night? And somebody tweeted back at me and she was like, well, what's the collateral damage of the other side? And I was for a second, I was genuinely not getting her question. I was like, so are you asking me what is the collateral damage of not falsely accusing people? I mean, that's the stupidest question I've heard in a while. There is no damage to not falsely accusing somebody. The collateral damage of accusing somebody falsely is that person loses their reputation, they lose their job, they lose their family, they might get locked up for life. If we actually rely on due process, there's no collateral damage there. Yes, there's some people that are not necessarily going to be, people might think that the criminal justice system doesn't believe female victims. I don't think that is necessarily true anymore. I do think that police departments are a lot more sympathetic now than they were 50 years ago. If a woman walks into a police department today and says, I was just raped, she's not going to be told to come back tomorrow. They're going to go ahead and listen to her, take a rape kit, treat her as a victim. That, I mean,
I ask you about. I've heard about rape kits, and I heard other people when I talk about rape culture, and they talk about this X number percentage of rape kits that have never been tested.
Correct.
And I'm curious, why aren't they being tested?
The cost, there is a cost. I would say on average for most police departments in the country, it could be as high as up to 40% of rape kits that have not been tested, because there is a significant cost, and a lot of cities just don't have the resources and the funds for it. Also, it's they don't necessarily have a dedicated forensic lab. If you're in a smaller city or a smaller county in rural parts of the country, you might have to have those rape kits sent to a bigger city, and there's a backlog for months.
Here's my thing.
There's just not enough resources.
Instead of trying to lower the burden of proof, how about we spend a little bit more money? And, I'm a fairly right-leaning, fiscally conservative motherfucker. I'm willing to pay a little bit more in taxes. I'm willing to put more money. Instead of, blowing the due process rules, how about we spend a little bit more money on getting these fucking rape kit tests taken care of? Because I got a weird story for you. My granddad, who died in, I can't remember, 80, 81. He used to be a police custody person. Well, when he passed away, various items moved from family houses. I remember going out to my mom's garage and finding, strange enough, the boxes of rape kit tests.
Yes, that's not uncommon.
Let's test that shit. If you find a genetic match to someone else who has some allegations, let's tie this shit together in a database and find these motherfuckers.
Exactly. I mean, that is the ideal. It definitely is something that I always tell people is if you really feel strongly about wanting to do something about sexual assault in your community, or, you want to make things better for women, one way to make things better is go and, set up an appointment at your state capitol and talk to your state senators, talk to your representatives about what is happening in your state with testing back the backlog of rape kits. Make it a point of business for you to find out what is your state's stats looking like on that, and try and lobby your state representatives to have more, to ask for more money for that. That's something you can do that helps due process. It helps women everywhere, but it's not, you're not ruining people's lives in the process. If you feel really frustrated about sexual assault, that is something that women can do, is go and talk to your senators to get those kids tested.
Yeah, because that's the one thing that does actually concern me about the whole people scream about rape culture. I see people scream about, you should not teach women how to avoid being raped. You should teach men not to rape. Well, we always do. I had a pretty good idea that rape was wrong, at least by the time I was in my adolescence, where I was probably even capable of it. We do teach people not to rape, but there's some things you can do to lessen the chances.
Absolutely.
If I don't go to jail, my chances of getting raped are pretty low. If I go to jail, though, my chances of getting, my understanding from some of the things I've read, my chances of getting raped, depending on the jail, depending on the, if it's white collar or not, are pretty fucking high.
No, I mean, as a woman, I can say that much. It's I know that there's people that get really upset when you say to women that there's some things that you can do to protect yourself. And that is not in any way intended to place, victim blame or victim shame people. You can be sexually assaulted in any situation. You can be sexually assaulted not doing anything wrong. But there are certain times where, women might put themselves in positions where there's a higher likelihood of them being more vulnerable. If you are, going out and you get really, really drunk, there's perhaps a greater chance that you may not be able to fight off somebody if they were to attack you. It doesn't mean that you're not allowed to go out and have a good time or get drunk or whatever you want to do. But it is just saying, it's be mindful. It's if you're going out and you're getting really drunk, maybe make sure that you have a friend with you to take care of you and that you're not by yourself, because you are more vulnerable at that point. That's not, I don't think that's victim shaming or victim blaming. It's just a fact. I mean, people get overpowered, and if you're impaired, you can't really fight back.
Yeah, I heard of a guy at a conference. He was I first heard it was this particular girl who she complains a lot about rape culture and other feminist issues. But apparently, there was a dude she tried to keep from. Well, she's known for getting very, very drunk, and some guy took her back to her room to make sure she's safe, get her back there. And he got her back there, and she tried to keep him from leaving. And originally, I was like, "What guy can't overpower a woman and push him off?" Then I found out which dude it was, and I'm like, "Okay, this guy, nice guy. He does look a little like an Auschwitz victim, though. You know what I'm saying? Like, have you known someone with Crohn's disease?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's people that definitely look like they're, that
Yeah, Crohn's
a
disease.
lot of women could easily overpower,
Yeah, eating causes you physical pain. So I can understand why I don't fucking eat, and I can get and I'm like, well, what would save him? I don't know. People just gotta look out for each other, and yeah, sometimes people associate with the wrong people, and you don't know, and
Exactly. I mean, it is unbelievably easy just to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And the thing too that people need to, that I've had discussions with women is like to keep in mind it's not just about sex, it's about power, it's about control. And I mean, these people see, if a potential rapist looks at you, he sees, and I'm using the term he versus her, but the reality is there's women that rape as well, and there are women that sexually assault other people as well, and women that sexually assault other women.
And there's more men doing it than women.
No, absolutely. But we can't say that there's never any woman that ever commits sexual assault. That's why I'm like, I'm just going to say like men versus women, but with the understanding that it does happen to men as well. But the fact is, I mean, they see a victim who happens to be a victim of opportunity, and that's why they seize that moment. There's something about that person that made it more, they were a victim, they were convenient, they were available, they were impaired somehow, or it is about power as much as it is about sex. And that's why I just feel like it's not harming women to say to women, it's like, I'm not blaming you for what happened, because you didn't do anything wrong, but there are things you can do to kind of protect yourself a little bit more in certain situations.
I put it this way, it's not your fault, but it's at least in part your responsibility. I mean, there's things I can do. Like, I can do various things to avoid being raped. Like, at some conferences, occasionally, I get passed out drunk. Only occasionally.
Only occasionally, right? We know you do it every damn conference, dude.
Those things you can avoid and reduce your risk. You didn't do anything wrong, but still you're responsible to try to mitigate things as much as you can.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, I'll even kind of just from a female perspective say, I think it is sometimes, it's harder for women to necessarily, they don't want to hurt somebody's feelings, or they don't, they don't want to upset anybody. They don't want to make a big deal about something. But I mean, it definitely is something where I feel like it's not necessarily your responsibility, but there's just some things that I think you can do to make sure that you're not in a more vulnerable position than you already are. If you see that, you've been talking to somebody and you can see that the person is getting more and more drunk, then it might be a good time to leave, or to ask somebody else to take you home. And, there's just things like that. And believe me, like I said, the last thing I want to do is to make it sound like I think that people are asking for it or doing something wrong, because I think you could be raped in you can be walking down the street and, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. But the kind of the same way, it's like if you're a tourist in a foreign country, and it's a country where there's a lot of crime happening, you don't walk down a dark street wearing a camera and an expensive, watch. You know that there's a good chance that you might get attacked. It's kind of the same thing as like, you don't place yourself in a position where you're more vulnerable than you already are.
But some people call that victim blaming. And I'm like,
I know, and I mean, that's why I'm really careful to say that, because I feel bad in the sense that I've been accused of doing that, and believe me, that is not the last thing I would ever do, is to victim blame. I don't want anybody to ever think that I have no sympathy for what is happening if somebody is a legitimate victim. But the fact is, if you were really, really drunk and you were sexually assaulted, then I just, at that point, the only thing I can tell people is to say that would be something to let other women know that it might be a good idea to not be alone at a party and get passed out drunk, because you are making yourself more vulnerable.
There's a lady I know, she was going to give a talk at a subcon at DEF CON called TierraCon. I think they
Yes.
changed it to Diana Convention. The Diana Initiative.
Diana
It's a dumb name. I'm sorry. The Diana Initiative. I understand Wonder Woman was popular at the time, but TierraCon was better. Anyway, she was going to give a talk, and one of the subjects was going to be, avoiding sexual assault. And someone chimed in, it's like, you can't avoid rape. You can't absolutely avoid it. You can't 100% guarantee it. But yes, there are things you can do. And that was what the lady was going to talk about, but she got this whole Twitter argument with some nut job who said you cannot avoid rape. Yes, you can do various things to mitigate the fucking risk.
Well, it's like anything else. There's some things that you can do to mitigate the risk. You can't, avoid getting your house broken into, but you can mitigate the risk of that happening as well. That's why people get alarm systems. That's why you get security doors, stuff like that. It doesn't mean that it's not going to happen to you, but you're making it much more difficult for somebody to do that to you. And that's not blaming. If somebody breaks into your house, I'm not blaming you if I say, well, if your alarm wasn't set, you left the front door open, you didn't lock any doors, and you left your big screen TV visible, I'm not blaming you by saying that maybe you made yourself more vulnerable. It still is, it still sucks. I'm not happy that it happened to you, and I have very much, I want to, get you justice for what happened to you, but I would tell other people, well, learn from that example. You may not want to leave your front door unlocked. You may not want to leave your alarm unset. That's kind of how I look at it. It doesn't mean that I'm not trying to blame people that it happened to that legitimately didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah. Try to take precautions where you can.
Exactly.
In the case of locks, put some security pins in there, spools, some serrated. In the case of rape, avoid male feminists.
Well, yes. It's not. I mean, again, now you're kind of doing the same thing that they're doing. It's like you blame all men. I mean, there's probably legitimate male feminists that wouldn't harm a fly. I'm sure that they. No.
I know a few creepy male feminists, and yeah.
I would like to think that they exist. I would really like to believe that they're not all predators, but it doesn't seem right now. They don't have a good track record. I'll put it that way.
Okay, I'll also say there are some probably good ones, and I know one that actually. Here's the deal. He has male feminists in his actual profile. I actually started discussing with him. He didn't know what TERFs are. He didn't know what SWERFs were. He didn't know who Camille. How do you pronounce Camille's last name? Pagilia?
Palia.
Halia. He didn't know who Camille Paglia was. He didn't know who Christina Hoff Summer was. I'm like, you have feminists listed in your profile, but you really don't understand what's going on in the culture, right?
No. He only did half the training. He dropped out before he completed the course.
And he's a good guy, and he helped me with some technical shit recently. But he just didn't quite. But yes. So all people who put that shit in their profile, you just don't quite understand. But actually, that's one of the things that we have you on for. You were going to do some research on this because of that tweet.
Yes.
I want to go into false rape allegations because she's like, it never happens. Hell, fucking, what's her name? Lena Dunham said it never happens. Then all of a sudden said, oh, yes, this guy is falsely accused. And then when she got a social justice backlash, she went back. She's kind of like, Kathy Gifford? You remember Kathy Gifford in the Trump thing?
Oh, absolutely. No, that's the whole thing. It's like they said something and they never anticipate a backlash. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wow, now it's being directed at me. Now I'm backtracking my whole story.
Yeah. Kathy Gifford gets me. She did it. Then she apologized. Then she switched back. Then she whines about not getting queer. You know what Kathy Gifford should have done? She sort of, after she did the Trump thing, and I'm ambivalent towards Trump. I don't think it's a great presidential choice. But I didn't like Hillary either. I voted for Johnson. But at the same time, I don't care. I don't like him. I don't hate him either. But what she did, if she had just stuck with it, she would have more respect from both sides than her apology, than switching back and saying that somehow Trump has ruined her. If she just stuck to her guns and just, even though I don't agree with her, I'd have more respect for her for that. You know what I'm saying?
No, I mean that's the whole thing. It's like, I mean, I just think it's a case. You have to be realistic. If you're going to make some kind of a joke where you're threatening to decapitate the president, you're stupid if you don't think that there's going to be a backlash. I mean, if you didn't anticipate the backlash, then I would say that you're delusional. And because you couldn't have done that about any other president. If you did a skit on any kind of comedy thing where you decapitated President Bush, or you did it with Obama or anybody else,
well,
you would have had a backlash.
There were at least a few people who did some like Obama lynching looking things. I've seen some footage of that. So it wasn't famous people who did it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this was pretty damn extreme. And yeah, so you got a backlash, but I mean, that's the one thing is like, if you have power of conviction, then stand by your conviction and say that I'm going to stand by what I originally did. It's power of free speech, and no matter what. But you don't get to come back a month later, and then after your career went in the toilet, then you come back and now you suddenly blame it on, well, they retaliated against me. Nobody made you do a skit with showing, Trump's beheading. Nobody made you do it. That was your choice. Now you have to live with the consequences. That's free speech. I mean,
I also heard an alternate view of this from who's the guy that used to be in the Man Show? I'm trying to Adam Carolla.
Yeah.
When you're doing like shoots for some of these promotional things, they have you do all sorts of wild ass shit that you may not think was actually going to go out in the photo shoot, but after like a few hours, you're like, all right, you want me to hold this head? I'll do it. I don't care.
Right.
So maybe, but at the same time, she could have just said that too.
I mean, that's the whole thing is there's different ways of going about it. But the bottom line is, as a comedian, she pushed the limits on acceptable, what would be acceptable comedy or what would be appropriate comedy. It backfired on her. There was a public outcry. There was a public reaction to it. Now you've got one of two choices. Either you can, try and make things right by apologizing and, trying to settle, kind of do a better, doing comedy that does not offend somebody. You can back down, or you can stand your ground and say, "Hi, I stand by what I said. This is my right to free speech. I'm standing by what I did, and I'll live with the consequences." You do not get to kind of play the victim after that. You don't get to come around and say, "Well, I'm really the victim in this." No, you're not. You made a choice, and you have to live with it.
And she did both. That's the thing. That she did the apology, then she did the backtracking apology, and
I mean, that's the whole thing. It's like, I have sympathy for it because, I'm a massive advocate for free speech, and I believe that people should have the right to say what they want. But there is something to be said for when you say something, you've got to be, you have to understand that there is a consequence to it. And if you don't want to live with the consequences, then maybe you shouldn't put it out there. And that's not on anybody else. That's on you.
But that does bring us to what I think the main thing you want to talk about when you want tonight. I'm trying to find out what the actual false rape, pardon me, I'm burping, false rape allegation statistics are. And I'm finding all sorts of shit. And I'm going after Wikipedia. I see as low as 1.5, and the number I normally see presented by various feminist groups is like 3%. I'm seeing all the way up to 90%. A more mild high number is like 41%. But I'm seeing all sorts of percentages. What was your research on that?
My research looking at the FBI's data statistics and the Department of Justice, which are both not entirely, accurate because they don't necessarily report on crime data that they got from all police departments. Not all police departments label, sexual assault. They lump sexual assaults together. It's not necessarily broken down versus, what is actual rape and what is just, what they categorize all sexual crimes as sexual assault into one category. But that said, the number that I saw is on average somewhere between 8 to 12%. Now, again, it's something where I can't say that is definitely the hard number because I think there are some variables in that. I very much dispute that it is as high as 40%, and I very much dispute that it's as low as 1.5%. I think that 8 to 12% to me, based on, like I said, what I saw from the FBI statistics and Department of Justice statistics, that seems to be an appropriate number. Is about 1 out of every 10 claims of rape might be a false claim. And again, there's also, they don't distinguish between what is really a false allegation and versus an allegation of rape where there was simply not enough evidence to convict. So you might have somebody that actually got off on a rape claim where they were, there was just not enough evidence to convict them. I don't think that there's not a clear distinction between what was 100% just somebody flat out lied.
This is a hard thing to get stats on because one, it's one of those things where it's an act where the legality of it depends on the person's mental state and whether or not they consented. And unless there's a witness, it's hard to say. It's also one where if people come back later, years later, there's no freaking physical evidence left to declare one way or the other. Also, when it comes to false rape allegations, like how people throw stats out, I think a lot of the feminist stats I see on that, when they say 3%, it's only 3% have been actively proven to be false, like the guy moves in another state or something. But there's other cases where, like, well, let's say the case of, what is his name? The one that was involved with Emma Solkowitz, Mattress Girl. His proof that he did not rape her was the fact that she kept messaging him about stuff and wanting to hang out with him after the supposed rape. But then people will come back with a claim that, well, different people react to rape a different way. I don't know about you all, but if all of a sudden, Jack rapes my ass, I'm not going to be calling him up and saying, we need some hangout time, Jack. Even though Jack's very pretty man.
Don't even go there. You know how many times I've been accused of rape?
I'm sorry, man. Sorry. All right, let's say Allie rapes me. I'm not going to be messing with him about
really.
Wait, Allie's a little smaller than me. I think Illustrious has guns. He's about my size. If he wanted to, he could probably force himself on me.
Well, I mean, I'll say this much: it's like I don't think it's
I think I'm not this too hard. Never mind.
No, that's all good.
He is awfully pretty man. He's got that beard. It would tickle. Never mind. Sorry.
You're just jealous because you shaved yours off.
Yeah. Well, hey, I made $200 for charity though.
You made $200 for charity by shaving?
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, they do a lot of. Well, they do various things now, but mostly it was like this hacker space in like Africa where they teach African kids and adults various work skills so they can go out and get better jobs and that kind of thing.
That's awesome. Good for you.
And currently, Mary Margaret Conley has my beard, and she was doing felting with it. And I've seen her try to wear she made my beard into like a beard wig.
That's not creepy.
Not
at all.
It looks a little creepy. I'll send you some pictures.
I was being very sarcastic. That's creepy as fuck. I'm sorry. That is just weird.
Should we get It's okay. She has a magnificent cock.
Yeah, she does. Mary Margaret has a magnificent cock. Let me show you Mary's cock. Her cock is beautiful. Let's see. Her cock actually has his own Twitter profile. Let me.
He's the booby cock.
Yes, here is a link to his Twitter. It's a very nice cock, and he protects his chickens well. There was some hawk that, all right, granted, he didn't get to the hawk before the hawk killed his chicken, but he grounded the fucker. But Mary couldn't let the thing die because apparently there's some law about hawks, and I don't know the deals in Indiana that they're endangered species.
Generally speaking, raptors like hawks and osprey and eagles are protected everywhere.
Okay, yeah, you're the hunter guy. You know more than I do.
So yeah, like once it's wounded, they have to call probably the local game wardens or whatever who will take it, and then there are people who will nurse these birds back to health. That's usually what happens at that point. Although
that's true. I know in our county there's some people that do like hawk rescue and stuff like that. Because I actually there's hawks that live in a couple of trees like not far from behind my house. I've seen them there. They have nests and stuff like that. And so I kind of looked up like the numbers of hawks in my county. And yeah, I know that there's a rescue group for that.
Anyway, Mary has a very cool hawk named a very cool cock named Carl. And he's very cool. Like he'll shit on her shoulder like a fucking parrot. And she can feed the thing by hand. And,
He'll shit on her shoulder?
Yes.
That sounds like a shitty situation.
She's gonna bring it. Supposedly she's gonna bring it to DerbyCon next year. She's gonna get a little diaper so it doesn't shit all over the place, and she's gonna actually be sitting there doing video for me while her cock is on his shoulder.
He needs to wear a little derby.
That is part of the plan too. Mary has said as such. She's gonna make him a little derby. I love Mary, but Mary's insane. But Mary's she has a bunch of farm animals. She also has an animal named after me. She has a goat named Adrian.
See, that's the one thing that I do want is I've always said I want a goat, I want a little pig, and I want a llama or alpaca. So far, I haven't had much luck, but I'm still pushing for that. At some point in the future, I'm going to get myself a goat.
Goats are baby goats especially are so cute. That's a goat.
They're adorable. They're so smart too, and they can eat the weeds, so I don't have to do weeding in the summer. It's great.
There's a goat that's the son of Adrian that has this facial expression like, "Come at me, bro," and it's so adorable. I got to find this thing for you. Anyway, back to the original subject. The percentage, what you came up with based on FBI stats, is around 10%. Yeah,
it's about like I said, about 8 to 12%. Like I looked at different reports and different studies from different years, and kind of worked out an average for that. And obviously I didn't do an extensive amount of research, but it didn't jive with a lot of the if you look at research studies that's out there, especially you have to be very careful like who did the actual research. And I hate to say it, but if it's women's organizations or feminist type of groups, the statistics seem to be, really like underestimated. They tend to be like, oh, it's only like 1.5%. And it's a lot more than that. It is not up to 40%. I mean, there's definitely far more rapes that are actually real rapes that did occur, than there are false allegations. But I think if you look at if you just broke it down, like, let's say for argument's sake, it's 10%, 1 out of every 10 claims will be, possibly a false claim. And that is given the number of reported rapes that happen every year. Look at that. That's potentially thousands of people that's being falsely accused.
That is the Adrian goat's son.
That is an adorable, adorable boy.
Come at me, boy. Well, that's a cute goat. And I have pictures of Adrian, but Adrian's turned to the back to everybody, and his nuts are showing. And they're fucking huge. It's a goat. Goat balls are huge. Actually, when Adrian eventually passes away, hopefully for a while from now, but he is I don't know how many years old, but he's fairly old for a goat. Apparently, he wasn't in well health, but hopefully he'll last for a while longer. Eventually, I will probably have his ball sack as a case for locks.
That is just not right.
It's a little weird, but yeah.
That's nuts.
Yeah, that's a good one. That is the best pun you can possibly come up with in that situation. That is just not right. You shouldn't do that.
All right, let me see this. Let me show you.
I'm inebriated. You don't have an excuse. I drank sake, motherfucker.
Do you drink it cold or warm?
Warm.
Ooh, good.
See, sake always tastes like watered down vodka to me.
It kind of does. That's a good point.
Yes. Oh, by the way, I have vodka in the fridge. You feel free to take some if you want.
Okay, we got a little bit of some.
All right, here's Adrian goat.
My friend, her name's Amy. My friend.
You see Adrian goat, right?
Adrian goat?
Oh no, I'm talking to the people on my chat.
Oh.
That's Adrian. Glowing eyes and things hanging down.
He is cute.
But yeah, that one that says "Come at me, bro." That is his son apparently.
Oh.
But yeah, there's a lot of cute goats. I understand why people want pets, but it seems like a lot of work.
Well, that's kind of what I heard. I mean, they are not really like it's not like endorsing a pet.
Well, okay, so the 10% stat sounds possibly right to me.
I mean, I do think there's a good chance that it is still a little bit low. Who knows? But I think it's a more reasonable number than to say like it's as low as 1.5 to 3%, because like I said, the numbers that I see is definitely higher than that. It could be on the lower end. It could be closer to 8%. If anybody comes at me with a more accurate number, I'm happy to be like, okay, if it's 8%, then great. That's better than 12%. But I think it's somewhere in that ballpark.
It's actually 1,337%.
I have vodka in the freezer. All right.
I need vodka and
Mix it with someone else.
No, 16 months.
I'm 43 and I still drink vodka. What the hell? I am immature though. Sorry, my roommate and a friend of his is home. So yeah. But okay, the stats collecting on this shit is so hard because it depends on who you ask. And I linked off to the Wikipedia article. Or look at the Wikipedia article. There was so many stats that go so many different fucking places.
Yeah.
It also depends. What do you consider rape? What do you consider sexual assault? What do you consider this and that?
Exactly. And I mean, you have the one thing that I notice is like, if you look at just the FBI statistics, that's one thing. It's like not necessarily all campus police departments report their statistics. So you might have rape allegations that were investigated by campus police that were never reported, or at least their stats didn't make it up to the FBI statistics. So the number could be higher, it could be lower, but I think that's based on kind of what they get from police departments and jurisdictions across the country. But they tend to have a pretty standard definition of what is rape versus what is sexual assault, what is or attempted sexual assault versus sexual harassment. So if they call something rape, it typically is forceful, it typically involves penetration, it typically involves non-consensual sex kind of thing. So that's kind of based on that, the number seems to be in that range.
Yeah, universities though are generally universities are shit. University administrators are generally scumbags. Like, all right, here's the thing. There was the Clery Act. If you remember the Clery, I think it's the Clery Act. Am I saying the wrong name? It's basically the thing that made campuses start to disclose local crime statistics to the students. Because there was this lady, I think, as I recall, let me do some Googling. There was this lady who got raped and killed on a college campus, and it was like days and days and days before the university administration revealed it. Because university administrators, in my basic dealings with IU, are scumbags. They want to have the best PR they can. So they will cover up actual rape when they can. Because they didn't reveal that this particular lady got raped and killed. But in other cases, when they think that it is going to go public, they will go the opposite direction and persecute a guy who may not be guilty. And you look at Dear Colleagues letter from Obama's administration back in, when did Obama send that? Was that 2009 or 2011?
You mean Title IX, the Title IX?
Well, they tied Title IX into it, but there was a Dear Colleagues letter.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, the Dear Colleagues. Yeah, I don't remember if that was, I think it may have been 2009. I could be wrong, though.
Yeah. Just take it. In my personal opinion, I ultimately assume that all college administrations will do whatever they think they can do to best help the PR and keep students coming in, spending tuition money on the fucking bullshit degrees. And so in some cases, it is in support of actual rapists. In some cases, it's support against people who weren't actually raped, but there was a claim against them. So...
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's, you only have to look at historic stuff that's happened on campuses to know that a lot, for a very long time, I think that kind of led to why women felt like their claims were not being taken serious, is because women had claims of assaults, legitimate assaults that happened. And, the college colleges treated it as if, well, that's our star quarterback, or, that's the member of the football team, and we can't afford to lose that guy. We're not going to go after him. And women's claims were not being heard and were not being addressed. And so I do think that there was that, but now it kind of went to the extreme of like, well, somebody can go and make an accusation, and the campus police will kind of handle it as if, well, this is our jurisdiction, and we're going to treat it as if a crime occurred. And they don't necessarily, they might collect a rape kit, but they don't call local law enforcement or hand over the case to the local law enforcement. So the police never really becomes involved up until much later. The campus police handles it as if it's a criminal case for them, and they may not be collecting evidence correctly, or they just kind of treat it as if something really occurred, and the burden of proof is on the person who's being accused of the assault to prove that they didn't do something wrong, which is really not. The whole thing just gets really screwed up at that point.
I'd rather be taken care of by the police than any kind of university administration, though.
No, I mean, in the end, you want to see people, you want to see it being taken care of by people that are trying to deal with the evidence, to collect the evidence properly, to, collect the right evidence, to talk to witnesses, whoever that might be. If campus police, if there's, university campuses where the campus police is trying to do that right, and they cooperate with local law enforcement, and they hand over the case and everything else is done by the book, then okay, great, fine. I'm happy to let campus police do their job. But if they can't commit to doing it the right way, then I don't think they should stand in then they should pass the buck and call local law enforcement and be like, this happened on our campus. We're going to we're going to turn all the evidence over to you guys and let the local police department deal with it, because they're trying to deal with it. What I don't think needs to happen is that we start having these witch hunts where essentially campus administration looks at it as, well, there's an allegation against somebody, so what we're going to go ahead is we're just going to suspend the person from campus. We're going to tell them that they're on academic suspension indefinitely. They're not, they can't come to class anymore. At that point, there's only an accusation, there's only allegations. They have not been found guilty, but they're already being treated as if they're guilty. And at that point, there could be, it's being noted on their academic records. It could be something that they're effectively, their academic careers are already being ruined at that point, and it's really hard to come back from that. They might lose a scholarship. They might lose, residence on campus. All sorts of stuff happens.
Man, I don't know what to do. I want the actual people who done shit to get punished, but I don't want people who haven't done shit not to get punished. And
that's exactly it. And that's, I think, what the whole bottom line of the discussion is, as far as, certainly for me, as far as like, the tweets that Emily put out last night. It's like, believe me, again, as a woman, it's the last thing that I would want to do is for people that have done stuff against other women to walk off and not get, there's no justice for them. I mean, if somebody sexually assaulted a woman or sexually harassed a woman, or, whatever the case, I want justice for those women. But what I don't want to see is this witch hunt where people are being accused of stuff. There's no real evidence. It's mostly hearsay. And then they're being treated as if this is a very serious offense, and we're just going to fire you. We're just going to ban you from our conference. We're just going to kick you out of your dorm, all sorts of stuff. It's like a snowball thing. And there's no way to fight back, because, all you have to do, all you have at that point is your word against theirs. There's no, nobody wants to hear your side. And, that's where I'm really, really torn when I see tweets like what she put out last night saying that, I really couldn't care less if men are losing their jobs. I do care, because I think we're ruining innocent people's lives if we go that far.
And every false accusation makes people question even more true accusations.
Exactly. You know, the thing and that's the other tweet that I saw a lot last night that people, put out, and I had to agree with it. It's like, it's not unlike what happened in the South, during, years ago, where, you had black men being accused of crimes that they didn't commit, and there was no justice for them. They, they were being falsely framed. And that's kind of what she's saying that should happen now, is like, let's just frame innocent people. And we saw how bad that turned out for hundreds, if thousands of innocent black men that were accused of stuff that they never did.
I don't know if it went to the thousands, but it was a whole shitload.
Oh, I mean, there's plenty of people that were sent on. You only have to look at the number of guys that were sent to as far as death row for crimes that they never did. And then after they started testing the DNA from those crimes, they were like, well, okay, well, apparently they didn't commit the crime and they're off. There's a significant number of people that serve prison time for crimes that they didn't commit.
Yeah, I remember seeing a video. It might have been a year or so back from I don't remember his real name now. T.J. Cook, Amazing Atheist on YouTube, where he chronicles like the various, mostly black guys who got accused of rape of a white woman, and they didn't actually do it, but they got accused, and the motherfuckers got either big jail time or lynched.
Exactly. I mean, I'm talking, when I say thousands of people, I'm talking, we're talking for, a period of time. I think, realistically, if you were to start researching it now, you could probably come up with a couple of hundred examples, but I do think that's probably a higher number, because, we may not even know of people that happened to, in 1900s, in the 1900s in Mississippi. Not everybody made the newspapers. So we don't necessarily know of everybody that were legitimately innocent that were falsely accused. But I mean, to me, that's a good analogy, because that's how I look at it, is like, it's not unlike what had happened to people, just for they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. So the crime got pinned on them and they have no way of fighting back. And the risk that I think we're running into with it is like, everybody has this really emotional response to it's like every single day when you log on to social media, it's like one more sexual predator has been named. If it's not Harvey Weinstein, then it's, Kevin Spacey. They're just all over the place. And everybody's suddenly feeling, more like they can come forward and tell their stories, and that's great. But the same thing too is, I don't want to see people being accused of stuff that they didn't do.
The Kevin Spacey thing weirds me out somewhat, in the sense that a 14-year, he was like 14-year-old boy at the time, right?
I believe so. Yeah, I think he was 14 from what I remember reading.
Like a theater actor's fucking party at midnight. What the fuck was his parents?
Well, I mean, that's, keep in mind too, is like, if you read up like on Drew Barrymore's story, she was like, I think she was 6 or 7 when she was an ET. And, she started going to all of these actors' parties because she was a child actor. And, her mom knew where she was, but she was, getting drunk and using drugs when she was 13. So I don't think it's unreasonable. I think there's probably a number of child actors that are going to some of these events, and the parents know where they are, but they don't necessarily know, what's going on at these parties.
Why are the parents letting this shit happen, though?
Your guess is as good as mine. I mean, I guess people think it's a good way for them to like make connections in the industry, or they, whatever.
But the second case or so, and by the way, the guy who's really blown covered a lot of shit on Hollywood, Corey Feldman, he says he doesn't know anything about Michael Jackson. The second set of parents, though, that let Michael Jackson have their kid over for a sleepover, I'm like, you were hunting for a lawsuit. Even if I don't know if Michael Jackson did anything. According to Corey Feldman, he didn't think Michael Jackson did shit. But the parents were obviously fishing for a lawsuit.
Of course they were.
And I'm not saying, I don't know if Michael Jackson was guilty or not, but after you hear the first allegation, and it's kind of weird to leave your kid overnight at some like 40-year-old dude's house just because he has like a playground in his backyard. That's some weird
Especially if he has a playground in his backyard.
Yeah, that's
No,
some.
no, I mean, oh, okay. The first allegation I get, second allegation I get, but then what about the third and fourth?
There's a certain point at which you gotta have to imagine the parents who are using their kid as fucking bait for a legal allegation. And I'm not saying that he didn't do anything or not, but damn, parents, what the fuck are you doing with your kid?
Yeah, I mean that I've always for years I've kind of felt the same way. It's like I just don't understand how you could let your kid go and spend the night at somebody's house. Yes, they're a celebrity, and yes, you may know the celebrity and all and stuff, but it's still like you said, it's a 30-year-old or a 40-year-old man who's not, he's not married. It's not like the kids are going to go to a sleepover where there's other kids that they know that they're being invited to a sleepover at the man's house. That's just how can you let your child? Why would you think that's completely harmless? It just doesn't seem normal.
I'm gonna point this out right now. The guy has a fucking playground in his backyard. What do you think is going on?
Yeah, I mean, it just seems really strange that somebody would voluntarily send their kid there to go and spend the night at somebody's house, and it's like
Because the settlement money is like winning the lottery.
yeah, I mean, essentially, and that is incredibly sad if you think about it like that, because it's like nothing else makes sense. Why else would you let them go? Did you not for 1 second think that something would go? Or maybe nothing did happen. Who knows?
Or,
But it does seem really awful.
or the singing like Charlie Bucket, like I got a golden ticket.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's like it literally is like this idea of like if your daughter, I'm kind of to some extent thinking of like what's happened now with this Roy Moore thing in Alabama. It's like him alleging that he was dating 16 or 17-year-olds with their parents' permission when he was 32. Well, which he's now apparently denying everything. But initially, when the story first broke, he said that he may have dated people as young as 17, but with their parents' permission. It's like, how would you
I would beat his ass just off GP.
What's that?
I would beat his ass just off GP if he came at my younger sister around that time, and all of a sudden this creepy ass dude's nah, fuck that, parents' permission or not, I'm still whooping his ass.
Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. It's like, why would you, if your 16-year-old daughter tells you, like, I got asked out by a 32-year-old district attorney, I mean, how does that sound like a normal thing to do for a parent? It's not, I was talking with somebody about it, and it's like, it's one thing if you're 50 and you're dating a 30-year-old, you're both adults, you're both probably working, you have, you're in a similar place in your life, but what does a 16-year-old child have in common with a 32-year-old man who's a district attorney? They're not even moving in the same social circles, anything. How would you as a parent look at that and be like, oh yeah, I'm happy to let him take you to the movies? That doesn't seem normal.
I think the biggest gap I've had has been about 10 years. Like when I was 29, I dated a 18 or 19-year-old, I think. But that's, yeah, the 32-year-old and a below 16, that's weird shit.
I mean, it's obviously it's like if somebody's a freshman in college and she's dating a 29-year-old, there's still a pretty decent age gap, but it's not unreasonable because they might have some things in common or whatever. But a 16-year-old, I mean, and a 32-year-old that's already gone through law school, he's working, he has a professional career. I mean, what would they possibly have to talk about? And if your kid comes up to you and says, well, this 32-year-old guy asked me out and he wants to take me to the movies and then ask me to go to his house, how would you as a parent look at that and be like, oh honey, that's great, go and have a good time over my dead body?
I would look at it from a different perspective. I would look at it from a perspective of, I need to get a gun out.
Pretty much.
Officer, I don't know what happened to that lawyer. I mean, even if you look at the articles that came out behind that, the mall in the town where he lived, they were aware of his creepy ass behavior and banned him from the mall.
Yeah, even Ben Shapiro's like, I don't know if I can support this motherfucker. Ben Shapiro's solution for the people of Alabama is don't go vote, because apparently the Democratic candidate shit and the Republican candidate does some legitimate, at least credible allegations against the motherfucker. Shit. Can we find some better fucking political candidates than the one we keep putting forth?
Because
that's the
this
whole
is the
thing. It's
best
like,
that both parties can provide. Then they're not truly the best candidates these parties can provide.
Fuck it. You know what? This last election, I would like to have Jim Webb versus Rand Paul. That's what I would have wanted. I would like. I don't care which way the election goes.
But Rand Paul's even creepy as damn self.
He is?
Yeah.
I don't know any allegations against Rand, but inform me if you got some.
I mean,
I'm not going to say them publicly, but
I will say
there.
So you're going to say?
No, I am not. But I mean, it's just a typical thing with Rand Paul. There's certain people in his circles that lean kind of sort of a certain direction when it comes to race relations. It's not necessarily all on him, but it's not looking good for him.
For Rand?
Yeah.
Shit, I don't know, man. I'll give me some information because I've liked, generally speaking, when it used to be when you had those, who would you support based on like this large-ass political poll? The first person they usually put in front of me back when the primaries were still going on was Rand Paul. So if he's got some allegations against him that are credible, I'll go against him again. But I just got to know what they are.
Well, I mean, one of his speechwriters when he was announcing his candidacy threw in a huge ass dog whistle. Now, not sure if it was intentional or accidental, but we got to take our country back.
Yeah, I hate dog whistles, man, because people throw out dog whistle politics, and I'm like, well, they didn't actually say it, and you say it's a dog whistle, but I don't know, and it's a big complicated fuck nut.
Well, I mean, okay, he might have been misrepresented, but I mean, it sounded awful lot like a dog whistle.
Well, the only thing I never heard specifically about that story, but the story that I did hear that kind of made me, I guess, look at him in a slightly different light was after he got attacked recently by his next door neighbor, and it was like one of the stories that people speculated on, and obviously it is just a really crazy speculation, but you never know. It's like people were like, well, why would it seemed like the attack was pretty personal, and obviously the guy was politically motivated to some extent, and there certainly seems to be some political stuff to it, but it also appeared like the guy, the fact that your next door neighbor, this is a guy that and have known for some time, and you go and you basically break his 5 of his ribs, you kick the shit out of him. It's not that easy to break a rib. I mean, you have to beat somebody pretty hard. It felt a little bit like, well, is there some kind of a personal agenda there? And what people on social media were speculating was there some kind of an affair going on with somebody's wife? And it did kind of, for me, for a second, I was like, well, I could kind of see it.
But I mean, those were the rumors coming out of Bowling Green, not so much on social media.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing. Is like, again, that's one of those, again, where I'm like, you never know where there's smoke, there might be fire. It could just be a rumor, but the fact is, the fact that people were bringing that up, and it's like, it's not unreasonable. I could see how one guy would go over to somebody else's house and kick the shit out of somebody if he thinks that they were having an affair with somebody's spouse. I could see how that could happen. Now, I'm not saying that that's what happened here, but it does kind of make you think a little bit.
Because, I mean, he's a doctor. The neighbor was a doctor. They
might
have possibly worked at the same hospital, ran in the same kind of...
Exactly. I mean, they obviously knew each other. That's why I'm having a hard time swallowing the argument that it's just about politics. Because if the neighbor is, apparently by media accounts, he is apparently a Bernie supporter. He obviously knew that Rand is a conservative or, a Republican. If he was going to beat his ass, why not beat it right after the election? I mean, why suddenly now? It just kind of seems a little bit strange. Just like, why, it seems like there's something else going on.
I'm assuming there's something local oriented going on there. Like I thought it was something about how people trim their hedges and some weird shit.
Yeah, I mean they say that might have been the start of Book of Camel.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I wouldn't believe someone beating someone's ass that bad over edge. Come on.
I mean, I've seen people do some pretty crazy stuff over, like HOA violations and stuff like that. But again, if you were going to just go over and your neighbor is trimming his hedges in a way that you don't like, you might punch him in the face and you might, give him a black eye or you might break his jaw. You're not necessarily going to break 5 of his ribs. Again, you'd have to kick somebody pretty damn hard and beat the shit out of somebody to make that happen, especially on a grown man who's at that point still able to defend himself. He's not going to just lay down there and be like, well, come on, beat me some more. He was obviously trying to fight back. And the fact that this guy was able to do that to him is like, that's a lot of anger right there.
Yeah, I don't know what exactly happened.
Well, I mean, for me, that was just an interesting one because that's another one where it's like, I'll be the first one to say, is like, I don't know what to make of this whole Roy Moore thing. I really don't. When the story first broke, my first reaction was like, oh my God, the guy is a total creep. He's totally guilty. But then, you do kind of hear stuff where it is kind of, it does become, you have to ask certain questions. Apparently that yearbook that he allegedly had signed, Gloria Allred has not yet turned that over for third-party investigation. And somebody, said, well, it's pretty easy to prove whether that's authentic or not. That's what science does. We can have, have it looked at to see if the ink on it is older ink or if it's a new entry. You can look at you can do a handwriting comparison, stuff like that. It's pretty easy to prove if that's false or not. So if that was in fact real, why not just hand over the yearbook and have him tested? Why hasn't she turned it over? And, I kind of look at that more I look at it, trying to be scientific about it and stay objective about it. And that does make me go, well, that's a good question. If that is 100% true, why not just turn it over? And, you have people coming out of the woodwork with claims that sound like they could certainly be reasonable, but there's also some gaps in the stories where I'm like, I don't know. There's something about it that feels a little bit off to me. So what do you do? I mean, if I was living in Alabama, I guess I would do what Ben Shapiro said, is like, I just probably wouldn't go vote because I wouldn't know who to vote for, because it seems like, they're both pretty bad candidates right now.
Yeah, Ben Shapiro, there's been some talk about Ben Shapiro 2020, and well, I'll vote for the guy.
I'm curious. I don't think, has he said anything? It's like, has he legitimately considered
other people put forth the idea, but I think he'll be old enough in 2020 because he was born in 84. You'd be, I think 35 to be president. Is that the case?
Yeah,
I'd be surprised if he does, given that he's got really, really young children. And I mean, his wife, I know she just finished her medical residency and stuff like that. I'd be really surprised if he would give up 2 years of his life to get on the campaign trail and all that with kids that are under the age of 5. Because literally, I think his son was just
that'd be rough.
Not too long ago.
That'd be rough.
So I would be surprised if he ran.
Do you have anything else to say about this particular section of the show notes?
No, I don't. I am all talked out. Those were my thoughts, because I sent you the text last night because, I think you and I kind of felt the same way about it. It's like, this is just, the numbers just don't seem to add up. And, what do you make of it? It's like, I don't want to see people get falsely accused, but obviously you want to listen to people when there are legitimate stuff. And so I don't know where to go. I don't know what the right answer is, but it does concern me that there's a lot of witch hunts right now.
Include a clause that says if you're a male feminist, instant execution.
I think a lot of women probably, and certainly in tech, they would probably by now agree with you. It's like, it just seems like that's just the easier way to go. It's like, save yourself a lot of hassle.
Hang up the shitlords. We're safer.
Exactly.
Anyway, the next topic is, and I don't know who put this in, but Uber hack and payoff. And Lee was in earlier and then disappeared. And he was asking me, have you heard from such and such person? I don't know what went on with the Uber hack and payoff. Can anybody tell me?
Uber got popped about a year ago, and they paid $100,000 to keep it quiet to the hackers so they would allegedly delete the data and all that bullshit.
So what did the hackers get exactly?
I do not know.
Yeah, my understanding is just like names of people that they were picking up, and I mean, if you have Uber addresses, it's pretty much names, it's physical addresses of people that you're going to be picking up, and credit card numbers.
Probably some GPS coordinates as well, frankly.
What I don't know if you guys have heard similar to that with the other thing with Uber is apparently they've been slapped with a fine. I think it's $8.5 million fine for hiring people with criminal with criminal records, not doing background checks and eliminating people with criminal records.
Yeah, eliminating criminal record people from your app is probably a good call, but I don't know much about this particular story.
I saw the story briefly and I kind of read through just because I thought it was interesting. I guess people were going after them knowing that there were people that had criminal records for things like sexual assault or violent kind of crimes, physical assault, stuff like that. And after they got released, they were getting jobs as Uber drivers. And the argument is like, well, they're not, they pose a risk to the public. So how the hell can you hire them to be a driver where they're directly going to be interacting with the public? And so they got a fine for not doing proper background checks and proper screenings.
Well, the sites have lack of comments here, so I don't know what to say about.
Yeah, like I said, that's
the thing to remember about Uber is they have a lot of shady shit going on.
Well, they always have had a lot of shady shit going on.
Yeah, that's the point.
I mean, they seem like a troubled company. There's just a bunch of stuff that's come out against them. It seems like every week Uber's getting, heat for something. So the idea that I always just got was like, they just really didn't have good management and they did some really shady stuff. And it's hard for them as a company to turn themselves around because, it's all the way from the top down.
Yeah. Once you have a negative corporate culture, it's kind of hard to dig that out.
Yeah, because they got rid of Travis, but I don't think that really fixed the problem. It's like, you kind of have to, at that point, it's been part of the company's culture for so long that it's really hard to reverse that.
Yeah, I've been in companies that have had cultures that were, let's just say, questionable. And I'll put it like this. When it's a top-down problem, if you're a junior, if you're anything but a C-level person, guess what? You're fucked.
I mean, you look at kind of like now, like the culture at Equifax, for example. We were talking about it this afternoon. It's like you look at just what happened with Equifax. You have this obviously this massive issue with the breach, and it exposed how bad your security policies were. But instead of owning it, and instead of trying to say we're going to do better, we're going to make it right, you're still like turning around, just pinning it on one contractor and refusing. Upper management is refusing to acknowledge that, hey, yeah, we screwed up. It just doesn't look like it's not going to have a good outcome for them long term because, to me, I look at that and I'm like, the problem is clearly coming from management and it filters all the way down.
Yeah, I've been in the situation where I was junior in situations similar to that. And I wound up on the unemployment line. Fun times.
Oh, yeah, that's the worst.
Yeah, I'm still on the unemployment line after all that shit. It's like, God damn it, motherfuckers.
Guys, I'm just noticing now that I have about 5 minutes left before I have to get the next dish in. So I'm going to jump off and wish all of y'all a really, really happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, Marlene, and thank you very much.
Have a happy Thanksgiving, Marlene.
Thanks for having me on, Adrian, as always. It was fun.
All right, thanks. And I usually always send out an invite to everybody who was on the last cast. So if you ever want to join again, though, just DM me on Twitter or something, and I'll send you the link.
I will, because I enjoy it. It'll be fun to join in. Sometimes, obviously, if you guys are talking about security stuff that I know nothing about, I might join in and just be really quiet in the background, but it's fun.
That's okay too, Marlene. Thank you very much for joining.
Have a good one.
All right, folks. The next thing we got on the list is net neutrality. And here's the thing. All right, I'm generally for deregulation of most things. I'm a right-leaning libertarian, and my stock market portfolio has gone up a lot in the last year. However, net neutrality is one of those weird issues where when a company owns another company that has an interest in such and such company, and they could possibly manipulate data traffic to say this one gets more benefit as far as bandwidth than another, that concerns me a little bit. At the same time, I also understand disallowing net neutrality so people can say, well, if you want a cafeteria ISP to shit to where you get faster access to this company, this company, this company for a lower price, I can get that too. It's subsidized. I don't know. Give me y'all's quick takes.
I personally think it doesn't matter much one way or the other, to be honest, because if the ISPs start messing with people's streams, or I guess I could see something where like ISPs might start causing streaming services like Netflix or Amazon Prime to cost more or whatever. But if they really start messing with people's internet experience, that's going to drive customers away. So I kind of see this as...
Here's the problem with that argument. Most people who don't live in cities don't have a choice who their ISP is. There's only one high-speed ISP.
ISPs are monopolies in some places, and that does complicate things because I'm a free market capitalist, but some places where there is a natural monopoly, some regulation might be required, and this is the part where I get a little bit, I'm not sure it's the best thing to do. Convince me, motherfuckers. Or don't.
I'm waiting for somebody else to go up.
Just give me a second. I'm actually
Jack is Googling some shit. He's back doing some.
No, I'm not Googling anything. I'm just doing what Jack does.
Translation. You're Googling.
No.
He's not Googling. He's using DuckDuckGo.
No, I'm not using DuckDuckGo.
Why aren't you using DuckDuckGo?
All right, someone say some shit. Because I don't struggle with net neutrality because I can see how non-net neutrality will allow customers to possibly buy cafeteria-style access. Like, I need this accentuated, this not, this accentuated, and companies can pay for it. At the same time, I also see how people abuse, like I am an ISP who happens to own or be part of the company that is CNN, and I'll give them extra bandwidth privileges so more people will watch them. I don't know. And I've heard people who are friends of mine on both sides say net neutrality is great, net neutrality is bad. I'm generally for, I just want my fucking internet access to be a fucking commodity and everybody gets equal access. But I'm willing to hear other arguments. Also, I've drank a lot of Kamchatka vodka at this point. So I may not be most can hear it individual in the world.
So the thing that's always confused me is back when I was taking my computer networking classes and was really deep into digging into what TCP and the IP protocol and like that was. My understanding was that network neutrality was a concept that was core to how the internet functioned at a technical level on the TCP IP protocols. That basically no one packet is higher status than another. And I think it seems to me that like now over time the term has been shifted into this regulatory framework. And that's that's very interesting to me that it's gone from, we've engineered the network to work a certain way, and now we're talking about regulating it. That, I don't know. I'm not. My thoughts are all kind of all over the place on this, but it seems like we're using the same term to mean two relatively different things.
Right. I think what you're talking about is traffic shaping on individual networks versus what your ISP does, which does some form of traffic shaping in the fact of some traffic is slower than others.
I don't know. Is this a topic matter that I should probably move off to next week after people get a chance to research it?
Yeah, probably be better then. What's on the next? What's next on the agenda?
Well, we don't know because I generally cover whatever the hell's going on that week.
All right.
So they put this back in. And did you guys like the idea of crazy group of the week kind of thing?
Yeah, let's go with that.
All right.
Now, when you're saying crazy group of the week, do they have to be currently extant groups, or can we delve into history a little bit?
We can do history. Just throw me a suggestion. Just let me know a couple days before so I can let everybody else know so we can all look at it and have an informed opinion.
Okay, I gotcha.
But I think we'll call it a night, folks. Thanks for joining the Irongeek cast. I'm going to stop the cast, and you all can hang on for just a bit more if you have anything else to say to me. But well, fuck y'all and good night.